Hello, hello, my wonderful globetrotters and laughter enthusiasts. Wow, Mira here, practically bouncing off the walls of our Jet Off AI studios, and thrilled to have you all back with us on YouTube. If you're new here, buckle up, we're about to take you on a journey. If you're new adventure just yesterday, I actually had a mini adventure just yesterday. I was trying to find a new coffee shop, a desperate attempt to broaden my caffeine to what looked suspiciously like a broom closet. Do you guys ever have those moments when you accidentally find you stared at me? I'm not sure at me. I'm not sure just stared at me. And me. And only. And I just smiled me.
Mira, only you could turn walking into a cleaning supply storage into a full-blown performance art piece. Wow, I can just picture a flurry of enthusiasm amidst the mops and buckets. Meanwhile, I was having my own travel mishap, though slightly less theatrical. I was trying to book a flight for my next stand-up tour. Emiru, I appreciate efficiency, but I'm not sure my audience is ready for Leo and the Mountain Goat Say comedy special.
Speaking of unexpected destinations, today we're comparing to countries that might not always be on everyone's radar but are absolutely fascinating. Get ready to explore the lush landscapes and rich culture of Gabon, contrasting it with the unique island nation of Nauru. Wow! For anyone dreaming of a new adventure, a fresh start, or even who knows finding love in a faraway land, this podcast is your ultimate guide.
That's right. Whether you're a curious traveler planning your next trip, considering a big move, or even thinking about marrying into one of these vibrant cultures, we've got you covered. We'll tackle everything from everyday life and economic stability to the little quirks that make each country unique. Oh, we know making a big decision like where to live or where to find your future spouse can feel like a stand-up routine without the punchline, so we're here to provide some clarity.
Absolutely! This isn't just a comparison, it's a guide to help you find your perfect fit, supported by the navigational insights we gather. Like those found through Jet Off AI. We're going to answer all those burning questions you might have about Gabon and Nauru, so you can make an informed decision without having to walk into any broom closets first. This is your comprehensive roadmap to understanding these two distinct nations.
Indeed, we'll shed light on the cost of living, cultural norms, hidden gems, and perhaps even some of the more absurd bureaucratic hoops you might have to jump through. Our goal is to provide such a clear picture that by the end of this episode, you'll feel like you've already had a cup of coffee with a local in both countries. So, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and leave your questions in the comments. We'd love to hear what you're most curious about.
We want to make sure you have all the information you need, delivered with our usual blend of humor and genuine insight. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfortable, and let's unravel the fascinating differences between Gabon and Nauru. You know, when I travel, my biggest concern isn't usually the big, scary stuff. It's whether I'll accidentally order something that bites back in a restaurant. But really, safety is always on my mind, especially when exploring places less traveled. Our current topic, we compare general safety, crime statistics, and the cultural factors shaping them in Gabon and Nauru.
Oh, bites back. I like that. Speaking of unexpected bites, I once had a street vendor try to sell me a genuine antique that looked suspiciously like a garden gnome. Oh, but you're right, Mira. People often have these preconceived notions about places, don't they? And sometimes reality is far more interesting or far less dramatic than they imagine. For Gabon, nestled in Central Africa, the reality is a mix.
Gabon, with its lush rainforests and incredible wildlife, sounds like an adventurer's dream. Well, but like many countries, its urban centers, especially Libreville and Port-Gentil, see more petty crime. Think pickpocketing or bag snatching, especially in crowded markets or after dark. It's not the lions and gorillas you need to worry about, it's the sneaky hens. You've got to keep your wits about you, just like in any big city.
So I think we can copy that. So, less Indiana Jones and more urban ninja, got it. Aha! I can already picture myself, coffee in one hand, strategically guarding my backpack with the other, the ultimate city camouflage. In Gabon, while serious crimes like armed robbery or carjacking do happen, they're less common. The key is to be aware, not paranoid. I'm certain that our listeners living in Liverpool would agree with me a little street smarts goes a long way.
Exactly. It's all about common sense is your best friend. Let's talk about Nauru. Well, this tiny island nation in Micronesia is literally one of the smallest republics in the world. Imagine a country so small. If you leave your keys on the beach, everyone probably knows whose they are.
Oh, a country where everyone knows your name? And you're missing sunglasses. That's quite a contrast to a bustling city like Libreville. I'm picturing a single traffic light, maybe, or just a friendly wave from the local police officer who's also the mayor, the postman, and the chief coconut tree climber.
Nauru actually boasts incredibly low crime rates. Because it's such a small, tight-knit community, serious crime is very rare. It's the kind of place where you might accidentally leave your phone on a park bench, and someone will probably track you down to return it. It's less about tackling crime and more about, well, a very strong sense of community. Do you guys agree with us? I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. How small communities handle crime.
That's amazing. So in Gabon, I'm perfecting my distracted tourist but secretly alert technique, and in Nauru, I'm probably just leaving my wallet on a rock and hoping a crab doesn't make off with my spare change. It sounds like the kind of place where the biggest crime is probably someone forgetting to bring enough snacks to the community beach party. Ooh, but seriously, the data confirms it's largely safe.
Yeah, it's a stark difference, isn't it? In Nauru, most concerns are more social issues than violent crime. Petty theft is almost unheard of. It's super safe for travelers, which is a big draw. You can definitely relax more there than in some of Gabon's busier areas.
So, for our listeners who are dreaming of a trip, whether you're eyeing Gabon's rich ecosystems or Nauru's tranquil shores, it truly comes down to understanding the local vibe. Both places have their unique charm, but one certainly sounds like less of a guard your belongings situation.
Absolutely. For both countries, staying informed, especially through resources like Jet-Off AI, can really help. They offer details that help you prepare for different environments, whether it's navigating urban areas with smart precautions or just enjoying a serene island without a care in the world.
A little research goes a long way. And hey, while you're checking out Jet-Off AI, why not hit that like button and subscribe to our channel? Ooh, it's like sending us a virtual high five for keeping you informed and entertained.
Let's pick up right where we left off, Leo, and dive into something that really shapes life in any country: political stability and social harmony. It's one thing to have great food, and I'm always up for that, but you also want to know if things are staying somewhat stable, right? My plans for the weekend are rarely stable, right? My plans for the weekend are rarely stable.
Oh, stable, you say? That's a brave word, Mira, especially when we're talking about places like Gabon and Nauru. You know, I once tried to keep my coffee cup stable on a moving train. It ended in a caffeinated disaster. Oops. So, Gabon's had a few recent wobbles, hasn't it? Like a major redecorating of the political landscape last year. Whoa, it's not exactly what you'd call set it and forget it stability.
Well, redecorating is a very diplomatic way to put it, Leo. It certainly got everyone's attention, didn't it? You know, I actually prefer my redecorating to involve more glitter and less, well, military intervention. No. But it does make you wonder how daily life shifts with such big changes. Speaking of unexpected shifts, what about Nauru? I hear their politics are more like a rapid-eye for game of musical chairs.
Musical chairs. Oh, that's a perfect description, Mira. No, bless its tiny heart, has seen more government changes than I've had breakfast burritos. And I love breakfast burritos, so that's saying something. We're talking about a parliament so small, you could probably fit all the members in my stand-up audience and then some. 1 minute you're prime minister, the next you're, well, wondering where your desk went.
That sounds absolutely wild. Imagine you wake up, pour your coffee, and then realize you have a new leader by lunchtime. Wow. It's like they're trying to break a world record for fastest government turnover. I'm certain our listeners might be thinking my commute is more stable than that. It must make it really interesting for anyone trying to, plan anything long-term.
Planning? In Nauru, your long-term plan might be a week. Oh, the political landscape there is less about grand ideologies and more about personal allegiances in a very small community. It's like a family reunion where everyone suddenly decides they want to host Thanksgiving. You can actually track the shifts on Jet AI. They've got some fascinating data on these kinds of political dynamics, if you're into the nitty-gritty details.
That's a great point, Leo. For Gabon, despite recent events, it has generally had a relatively stable social fabric with many different ethnic groups coexisting. It's like a diverse tapestry, where everyone has their own thread, mostly getting along. But when the political bigwigs start shaking things up, it can definitely fray those threads, can't it? I always wonder how people on the ground manage to keep their smiles through all that.
They probably need a lot of coffee, that's how. And maybe some self-deprecating humor. In Gabon's case, with the long-standing family rule, the social harmony often felt like a carefully managed calm. There's a difference between peace because everyone's happy, and peace because everyone's well quiet. Aha! It's hard to feel truly harmonious when the country's wealth, largely from oil, doesn't always flow down to everyone. That can breed a quiet resentment, don't you think?
Absolutely. Ouch. That's a tension that can simmer under the surface for a long time. But in Nauru, with such a small population, the social harmony must be quite different, right? Everyone probably knows everyone, like one big, slightly dysfunctional family. You can't really hide from your neighbor when you're on such a tiny island. I'm curious about what our listeners who visited Nauru think about that. Do you bump into your politicians at the grocery store?
I bet you do, Mira. Excuse me, Mr. Prime Minister. Is this avocado right? On Nauru, the social harmony is more intrinsic to its size. Everyone is connected, for better or worse. It means problems can be visible quickly, but also the community support is often very strong. It's less about hidden tensions and more about visible, rapid eye for disagreements, both politically and socially.
So we have one country, Gabon, that's had long-term, often authoritarian stability recently interrupted. And then Nauru, which seems to embrace political instability as a way of life with constant changes. Wow. Both are stable in their own unique, perhaps chaotic, ways. It really makes you appreciate a predictable Tuesday, doesn't it?
A predictable Tuesday. I'd settle for a predictable coffee order. But really, for anyone looking at these places, it's about understanding the specific flavor of unpredictable they're dealing with. It's not necessarily good or bad, just different. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe for more unpredictable insights like these. Oh! Because trust me, there's always something new to observe.
Alright, so we've been chatting about countries that are a bit off the beaten path. And that leads us nicely into something everyone worries about: economic conditions and cost of living. Let's start with Gabon, because when you say oil rich, My brain immediately pictures endless wealth for everyone, but I suspect life's not quite a yacht party for all, is it?
Oh, Mira, you and your yacht party fantasies. Gabon's an interesting one for sure. It's got that oil wealth which makes its GDP per capita sound impressive on paper. But then you look closer, and it's like a fancy cake where only a few get the frosting. The rest are just kinda looking at the crumbs. Wow. For expats in Leverville, the capital, things can get pricey. Imported goods. Rents, they hit you hard. It's almost like they charge extra for the privilege of not seeing snow.
Whoa. So, bit of an illusion then, that oil-rich label. My internal calculator is already doing backflips thinking about import taxes. Ouch. But what about the folks actually living there? The ones not just visiting with a fat expense account? Are they enjoying that economic boon in their daily lives, or is it more of a quiet struggle? I'm certain that our listeners living in Gabon would have some strong opinions on this.
You're touching on the real human element there, Mira. While there's a push for economic diversification, think timber, mining, agriculture, the oil money still dictates much of the pace. Job opportunities can be a bit specialized, often leaning towards industries linked to natural resources. It's not exactly a bustling startup scene, if you catch my drift. And then for a truly wild contrast, let's cast our gaze across the globe to Nauru.
Nauru? Wow. Now that's a switch. From an oil-rich nation to a tiny island that's famous for, well, phosphate mining, which I hear is pretty much done. Ooh. So, their economic conditions must be a completely different story. Are we talking about a place where you essentially pay shipping fees for everything, including the air you breathe? My imagination is running wild with a single grocery store that costs a fortune.
You're not far off, Mira, you sharp-eyed observer. Imagine Nauru's economy is largely dependent on foreign aid, particularly from Australia. Imagine running a country where your main export literally ran out. Whoa! It's like a comedian whose best joke just stopped being funny. The cost of living is high because almost everything, from food to building materials, has to be imported across vast ocean stretches. Ouch! Employment opportunities are scarce. Mostly government jobs or positions within the regional prost. Ouch.
So, if I wanted to open a coffee shop in Nauru, which, knowing my luck, would immediately run out of coffee beans, I'd be facing some serious logistical hurdles and import tariffs, wouldn't I? It sounds like a place where you really need to budget for the everything costs extra mentality. It makes me wonder about the day-to-day resilience of the people there. Do you think they find humor in it? I bet they do. If you're listening from Nauru, tell us what you think in the comments on YouTube.
Finding humor in daily struggles is a universal human trait, Mira. But from a practical standpoint, the financial realities in Nauru are stark. While Gabon offers a feast or famine experience depending on who you are, Nauru presents a more uniformly challenging economic landscape. For anyone considering living in either, it's not just about job availability. It's about the entire ecosystem of daily expenses. If you don't plan carefully in this is where Jet Off A, I can help with those financial breakdown off A.
My wallet cries for mercy even when I look at a sale sign, so I get that. Oh, but seriously, the contrast is fascinating. Gabon, with its potential, struggles with distribution. Nauru, with its past, grapples with basic sustenance and import costs. It highlights how economy isn't just a number. It's the texture of daily life. For expats, Gabon means high-end comforts at a price, while Nauru means a simpler life, also at a high price, but with different kinds of goods.
I imagine that's a very niche demographic, Mira. But their insights would be invaluable. Ultimately, whether it's Gabon's resource-driven challenges or Nauru's import-dependent woes, both countries offer very distinct economic realities. For anyone planning a move or even just a long-term visit, understanding these financial intricacies is paramount. And if you're finding this information helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We're always crunching these numbers so you don't have to.
Yes, like and subscribe. Ooh, it's like giving us a little high five for all this fascinating, if sometimes financially daunting, information. So, if you're dreaming of sipping a local beverage in Gabon's sun, or just trying to find a decent cup of coffee in Nauru, remember that the economic conditions will play a starring role in that experience. Wow.
Indeed. And for those planning their escape from everyday absurdity, remember to check out Jetoffe for detailed country guides that might just save your budget and your sanity.
Speaking of journeys, let's look at another essential part of any trip or move in, sometimes the biggest adventure of all: accommodation options and quality. Wow. I mean, where you lay your head down can really set the tone, right? For our two fascinating countries today, Gabon and Nauru, I'm already imagining two very different pillow talk experiences. Ooh.
Pillow talk, Mira? I'm imagining more like pillow fight when we talk about the price tags in these places. You always see the cozy side, but I see the numbers. For Gabon, specifically in places like Libreville or Port Gentil, you're looking at what I call expat palaces, which basically means you're paying a king's ransom for a decent roof over your head. Whoa! It's like welcome to Gabon. Please mortgage your firstborn for a two-bedroom apartment. Ouch!
Oh, you're always so dramatic about the pricing. But you're right. In Gabon, particularly for those seeking Western-style amenities and security, the cost can be significant. However, I prefer to see it as a chance to experience a unique market. You might find beautiful villas or secure apartments in gated communities, which offer a certain lifestyle, especially for families. Oh, it's a blend of modern living within a rich, natural landscape. And think of the stories you'd have about living in a secure compound. Don't forget.
Charm? I'm sure those generators for power outages have charm too, right? It's not just about the upfront rent in Gabon. You're often factoring in things like reliable electricity and water supply. Some places might be pristine, state-of-the-art even, but you also hear tales of character-filled properties, which is a polite way of saying things might not always work as expected. You better hope your landlord is quick with repairs, or you'll be staging a one-person protest in your living room.
Now, let's pivot to Nauru. Well, the smallest island nation in the world. Imagine the intimate living experience. Oh, definitely not about sprawling luxury resorts. Nauru offers a much more communal, close-knit vibe, with fewer traditional hotels and more guest houses or basic government-allocated housing. It's like everyone's part of one big, sun-drenched neighborhood. I bet you could walk to work, saying hola to everyone along the way. That's a unique kind of quality, wouldn't you say, Leah?
Hola to everyone indeed, Mira. On Nauru, you'd likely say hola to the same 5 people every day. The internet living experience you're talking about is usually because options are incredibly limited. Whoa. There are literally only a couple of hotels, like the Men N Hotel, and these are mostly for official visitors or contractors. If you're looking to rent privately, well, good luck finding an empty spot. It's practically like winning the lottery.
But that basic quality is part of its charm, Leo. It's about simplicity and functionality. Oh, you're living on a remote island surrounded by breathtaking beauty, so maybe you don't need a 20-room mansion. Plus, Nauru's remoteness means importing everything is expensive, which affects living costs and housing, making it a very unique market dynamic. It's an opportunity to live deliberately, wouldn't you say? I'm curious. What do our listeners think about trading luxury for genuine island life?
trading luxury for genuine island life, which probably means waiting for the next cargo ship for fresh supplies. Seriously though, in Nauru, scarcity drives up the price for even basic accommodation. It's not just the rent, it's the cost of everything you fill that accommodation with. Think about it, everything has to be shipped in. So, your deliberate living could quickly turn into budget battling. Ouch. I mean, I love an adventure, but my coffee still needs to be affordable.
You're right. Costs are a factor everywhere, but Nauru's situation is definitely distinct. In Gabon, with its more developed infrastructure, you'll find a greater variety of housing types, from modern apartments to older, larger homes that might need some updating. It's a continuum, really, with prices to match. Some properties even come with domestic staff included, which is a different kind of luxury. Well, it means you could focus on enjoying the vibrant local culture without worrying about chores.
Focus on culture or focus on whether your air conditioning unit will survive another Gabon summer. The quality can be a real mixed bag. You might see a beautiful exterior, but then step inside to vintage plumbing or an electrical system that looks like a spaghetti monster. Whoa. It's crucial to really do your homework or have a good agent when renting in Gabon to avoid those surprises. Otherwise, your first month might be less cultural immersion and more DIY renovation project.
And that's where resources like Jet Off AI come in handy, helping expats understand the housing market before they even pack their suitcases. Whether it's the secure compounds of Gabon or the close-knit community of Nauru, both offer completely different living experiences. So, for our wonderful listeners, if you're dreaming of a move to one of these unique spots, remember to weigh those accommodation factors carefully. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insights. Well, speaking of places that give you a good workout mentally, if not always physically, let's dive into the fascinating world of visas and official paperwork for Gabon and Nauru. I bet those places have some stories hidden in their bureaucratic maze. Oh,
bureaucratic maze. Mira, you make it sound like an adventure park where the price is a stamp in your passport. My guess is, for Nauru, that maze is probably just one desk, one person, and one very stern look that says, "Why are you even here?" I'm pretty sure their visa application is just a long-term staring contest.
You're probably right, Leo. But that's the fun part, isn't it? Discovering how different countries handle welcoming or not so welcoming you. For Gabon, it's a Central African gem, and they've actually made strides with an e-visa system. Wow. You can apply online. Send your passport, photo, and proof of accommodation. And if you're lucky, maybe a picture of your happiest smile. And voila. You're on your way.
Straightforward, she says. For Gabon, straightforward usually comes with a caveat if you speak fluent French and have a secret handshake with the local clerk. I'm certain our listeners who've navigated anything French-speaking bureaucracy-wise would agree with me. Imagine showing up, all proud of your e-visa, only to be asked for a certificate de bon humor at the border. You can find more candid tips on these kinds of journeys over on Jet Off AI, by the way. They've got the real world. Not just the pretty brochure version of these things.
A certificate de bon humor. I'd get extra points for that, I'm sure. But seriously, Leo, for those thinking about longer stays in Gabon, it's like most places, you'll need an employer to sponsor you for a work permit. It can get a bit, shall we say, leisurely paced. Patience is a virtue, especially when you're waiting for that all-important document that says, yes, you are allowed to contribute to our economy.
Leisurely paced is a polite way of saying your documents will enjoy a long vacation before they get reviewed, Mira. I imagine the Gabonese immigration office has a sign that reads, "Don't rush, you're in Africa," right next to the suggestion box filled with unread fast-track ideas. Whoa, but then you look at Nauru, and suddenly Gabon feels like a welcoming and more about why are you here seriously.
That's the real question for Nauru, isn't it? Why are you here? Given its size and remoteness, Nauru isn't exactly a bustling tourist hub, though. Who knows? Maybe someday it will be. Oh, their policies are quite strict, and gaining entry, let alone long-term residency, is exceptionally challenging unless you have very specific government or aid-related reasons. It's not a place you just decide to backpack through on a whim.
Your adventurous spirit, Mira, would probably be met with a very polite but firm nod at the Nauru border, followed by a confused look that says, "Are you lost?" They're known for being incredibly selective, almost like a secret club with no visible clubhouse. Oh. It's less about filling out forms and more about proving your existence serves a very unique, very Nauruan purpose. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Would you even want to try for a Nauru visa?
I probably just end up doing an impromptu dance routine on the tarmac. Oops. But for Gabon, while the e-visa is a good start, anyone planning a long-term stay needs to remember the official language is French. That means all your documents, interviews, and possibly even your coffee orders will require a big difference in ease of assimilation.
A small detail that becomes a mountain when you're trying to figure out if you're signing up for a work permit or a local dance troupe. And when it comes to Nauru, the official procedures likely involve a lot of finger pointing to the ocean and saying that way. The sheer lack of readily available information for general immigration speaks volumes. It's the kind of place where even Google says, "Are you sure about that search?"
Wow. Google saying, "Are you sure?" That's a new level of exclusivity. So, in essence, for Gabon, it's relatively easy to visit, but long-term residency and work mean navigating a structured, albeit sometimes slow, French-speaking bureaucracy. For Nauru, let's just say it's an extreme sport in visa applications reserved for the truly determined. Wow, talking about health services always makes me think of all the little mishaps that happen on trips. Like that one time I thought a herbal remedy was just tea and accidentally drank a whole cup of a very potent laxative. Anyway, today we're diving into Gabon and Nauru's healthcare systems. When you look at Gabon's access to and quality of health services, it's quite a mix, isn't it? On one hand, you have the capital, Liverpool, with some surprisingly well-equipped private clinics catering to expats. But then you glance at the rural areas, and it's a completely different story.
Ah, Mira, always turning personal digestive turmoil into a fascinating anecdote. I swear, my stomach clenches just thinking about potent herbal remedies. But you're right, Gabon's a classic case of two sides of the same coin, or maybe two different currencies when it comes to healthcare. Liverpool's private facilities for expats, it's almost like they have a VIP express lane for sniffles and paper cuts. Meanwhile, for the majority of the population, especially outside the cities, the picture isn't quite so rosy.
Speaking of Liverpool's VIP Express Lane, do you think they offer a caffeine detox for those like you? But seriously, the disparity is striking. For expats, getting comprehensive private health insurance that includes medical evacuation is almost non-negotiable. You can't just wing it and hope for the best, especially with things like tropical diseases. Whoa. I'm actually curious about what our listeners who've lived there think about this. What was your experience with the private versus public system?
Wing it in Gabon's healthcare? That sounds like a fast track to oops. Should have gotten that travel insurance. And yes, for expats, it's all about private care and the big ticket insurance. If you need anything beyond a fairly routine checkup, the next stop is usually a medical flight to South Africa or Europe. It's like having your personal ambulance on standby, ready to jet off. It's like having your personal ambulance on standby, ready to jet off. Oh, you definitely don't want to get sick in a remote village and realize your health plan.
Knowing your options, especially for serious health issues, is so important. Now, let's look at Nauru's situation, which is a whole other kettle of fish, or perhaps a very small fish in a very large ocean. This tiny island nation faces unique challenges when it comes to access to and quality of health services. They have one main hospital, the Nauru General Hospital, but its capacity and resources are extremely limited. Wow. It's an instance where small really does mean limited options.
Oh, Nauru, the one hospital wonder of the Pacific. Oh, it's not just a shortage of almost everything. I mean, if you stub your toe, you're probably getting the same doctor who handled a complex surgery last week. If they even have one. If they even have one. This really highlights how location impacts healthcare. The isolation alone creates massive logistical hurdles for equipment, medicines, and specialized staff. If you're planning a trip there, don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Because we're YouTube channel.
One hospital wonder indeed. It's not just about capacity, but also the highest rates of non-communicable diseases in the world, like diabetes and obesity. Ouch! So while you might think of tropical islands as idyllic, the health reality can be quite stark. This means the healthcare system is constantly battling chronic conditions with very limited resources, often relying on overseas referrals to Australia, which, let's be honest, is a huge journey for a medical appointment.
Overseas referrals, which basically means you need to be seriously ill to justify the journey. It's like your body has to fill out a visa application for a life-saving treatment. Is this ailment serious enough to warrant a 6-hour flight and thousands of dollars? It certainly makes you think twice about complaining about waiting times at your local doctor's office. The expat experience there would likely involve a quick assessment at the local hospital, followed by a prayer and a plane ticket.
Right? It's a stark reminder that what we consider basic healthcare access in many places is a luxury elsewhere. From Liverpool's expat clinics to Nauru Seoul Hospital, the difference in resources, infrastructure, and specialist availability is huge. Aha! It truly underscores why pre-travel research and robust insurance are absolutely crucial for both these destinations. If you're thinking of moving or even visiting, make sure you check out jet-all planning and insurance options. Ooh.
Absolutely, Mira. In both Gabon and Nauru, while there are dedicated healthcare workers doing their best, the systemic challenges mean you can't just wander in expecting state-of-the-art care for every ailment. It's a logistical ballet of limited resources and often distant solutions. For anyone considering these beautiful but challenging locations, remember to like this video on YouTube and hit that subscribe button for more candid insights into living abroad.
So when we're talking about getting around, let's kick things off with Gabon. Imagine lush rainforests, vibrant market zoo. Getting from point A to point B there feels like an adventure in itself, right? Like you're always on a treasure hunt for the next ride.
An adventure, Mira. Or maybe just a test of patience, especially if your treasure map involves a road that disappears after the last rain shower. Well, I've heard some of those main routes connecting cities like Liverpool to Port Gentil can turn into mud wrestling arenas during the wet season. Ouch. I bet our listeners who've actually driven there are just nodding furiously right now.
Oh, come on. Leo, you always find the dramatic side. But you're right, the roads can be a bit spicy sometimes. It's all part of the charm, no? And speaking of getting around, air travel is a big deal in Gabon for reaching those more remote, beautiful spots. Wow, domestic flights really open up the country, making it feel smaller than its dense forests suggest. Oh, it's like a secret shortcut over the trees. Aha!
Secret shortcut or just avoiding the mud strategy? I'm leaning towards the latter. When your national airline is the most reliable way to get from one major city to another, it tells you something about the ground game. It's like the roads are saying, "No, not today. Try flying." Oh. For all you travelers out there for those domestic flight options, trust me, your suspension will thank you.
Okay, Mr. Suspicious. But hey, for its size, Gabon is making strides. Now, let's pivot to Nauru. Speaking of small, imagine a country so tiny. Its entire road network is essentially one ring road around the island. Well, you could probably walk it in the morning after a good coffee. Oh, it's like a perfectly wrapped gift of convenience, isn't it?
Wrapped gift of convenience? Or just a very short loop, Mira? I'm picturing a traffic jam of 3 cars and someone having to back up for a mile. Oops. Nauru's transportation infrastructure is less about complex networks and more about don't fall into the ocean. Seriously though, it's pretty wild to think that their international airport is practically the whole country's main gateway to the world. Oh, you land, and you're basically everywhere at once.
It's true, Nauru International Airport is incredibly vital. For such a tiny island, it's their umbilical cord to the rest of humanity. Without it, they'd truly be isolated. And for daily travel, you've got personal cars, bicycles, and good old walking. No need for metro lines or intricate bus routes when the grocery store is just a 5-minute stroll away, right? Ooh. I bet our listeners on Nauru don't even know what rush hour feels like.
No rush hour, huh? I'm sure someone finds a way to complain about it. This ring road is just too efficient. I miss my bumper-to-bumper therapy. But it's a stark contrast to Gabon, where getting from one side of a city can take an hour, let alone crossing the country. For Nauru, the challenge isn't internal movement, but rather external connections, given its isolation. Oh, it's all about reliable air links for everything from tourism to essential supplies. Wow. And let's not forget the port, crucial for those bigger cargo deliveries.
Exactly. So, while Gabon is wrestling with its dense geography and developing its internal arteries, Nauru is mastering the art of simple, efficient local movement, with its main focus on keeping those international connections strong. Ooh, 2 totally different transport puzzles, but both fascinating in their own ways. If you've got a better transit hack for either of these places, drop a comment.
Right? Because who needs a metro when you can walk across your entire nation before your coffee gets cold? Or, in Gabon's case, when you need a canoe and a bush plane to visit your grandmother. Oh, these countries really show how diverse convenient transportation can be. And speaking of diverse, remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're enjoying this ride. Wow, your support helps us keep exploring these incredible places on Jet Off AI.
Alright, Leo, we're talking language barriers today. And for our 2 fantastic countries, Gabon and Nauru, this is a pretty wild ride. I mean, when I think of Gabon, my mind immediately jumps to French, right? It's like bonjour. How do you do?
You say bonjour, I say, where's the nearest coffee that understands my sleepy grumbles? But you're spot on, Mira. Gabon is undeniably French-speaking. It's the official language, and if you're planning any serious business or trying to impress the locals beyond a friendly wave, your French better be up to snuff. Whoa, it's not just a polite flourish, it's the linguistic backbone there.
Oh, I was just about to ask that. So if you're not fluent in French, are you basically playing charades in the market? I can just picture myself trying to explain that I want a mango with interpretive don'ts. But seriously, what about other languages? Are there many indigenous languages in Gabon, or is French truly the solo star?
Excellent question, Mira, and one that most travelers might overlook. While French is the official lingua franca, Gabon is actually a tapestry of indigenous languages. You've got Fang, Mayeni, and Zebi, Biepu and Oyu. It's quite the linguistic smorgasbord, if you're into that sort of thing. But for everyday tourist interaction, unless you're deep in a rural village, French remains your best bet. English, not so much, unless you're in a high-end hotel lobby or a very specific business hub.
Well, okay. So I guess my Mira's universal dance moves for mango acquisition might not work everywhere. Speaking of languages that are, let's say, less common on the global stage, let's hop over to Nauru. I mean, Nauruan, right? That sounds like a secret handshake more than a language. Is it super difficult? Or could I pick up enough to order a snack without causing international incident?
Ordering a snack without a diplomatic incident now, there's a life goal. Nauruan is indeed the official language. It's pretty unique, as you'd expect from one of the world's smallest island nations. Well, the good news for most visitors and expats is that English is also widely spoken. It's practically an official language due to historical ties. So, you might find your how's it going actually works there, unlike Gabon.
I'm sure our listeners who've tried to learn a new language on the fly would agree that having a fallback like English is a lifesaver. But I'm actually curious about what our listeners who do speak Nauruan think about this. Is it easy to pick up, or are there sounds that only a Nauruan native can perfectly pronounce? Like trying to roll your O's when you're just not built for it.
Well, Mira, I'm certain that our listeners living in Nauru would agree with me that Nauruan is pretty distinct. It's one of those languages where immersion is probably the only real way in. But the pragmatic side of Nauru leans heavily on English for broader communication, business, and pretty much anything involving a visitor. So, while you can respect the local language, you won't be completely lost, which is a rare comfort in such a unique place.
I'd probably spend all my time practicing my French accent, trying to sound like I just stepped out of a Parisian cafe, even though I'd probably be saying something like, "My cat ate my homework." But in Nauru, I could probably just be my regular, bubbly, English-speaking self. Oh, it sounds like two very different linguistic challenges, depending on what you're looking for.
Exactly. And speaking of challenges, if you're relying on technology for translation, Gabon might give you better luck with French. But for Nauruan, you might be out of luck, unless you're carrying a very enthusiastic local around in your pocket, which I don't recommend. Whoa, we'd love to hear your stories on YouTube, folks. If you've ever tried to learn Nauruan or navigate Gabon without a lick of French, drop us a comment.
Yes, please do. And if you're planning a trip and trying to figure out the language situation, remember catastrophe. They got resources that can help you figure out what to expect before you even pack your dancing shoes. Oh, maybe they'll even have a French for Mongol lovers course.
I think that we can conquer that. It's definitely a case of know before you go with these two countries. Gabon demands French, Nauru offers English as a welcoming handshake. Both unique, both requiring a bit of linguistic effort, but for different reasons. Just remember, a smile and a polite gesture usually get you further than a badly pronounced sentence anyway. Oh!
You're right, Leo. A smile is the universal language. Wow. And if you that's wrong, please let us know in the comments on YouTube. But seriously, understanding these nuances is crucial for any traveler.
Absolutely. And when you're trying to communicate across cultures, whether you're trying to order a coffee or just say thank you, sometimes it's the effort that counts. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and check out Jet Off AI for more travel insights that might just save you from an awkward moment or two. Ooh.
Okay, Leo, when we talk about cultural diversity and tolerance, my mind immediately goes to a massive global potluck. Everyone brings their best dish. But today we're comparing Gabon and Nauru, which is like comparing a really large, very buffet to a very, very exclusive, tiny tasting menu.
A tasting menu, Mira. More like a single, exquisitely rare, potentially questionable amuse-bouche, given Nauru's size. And Gabon. It's less a potluck and more a complex tapestry where every thread wants to be the brightest. You've got to wonder how they decide who gets the last spoon of plantains too.
Wow, I'm sure it's a very polite debate, Leo. But seriously, Gabon, with its Central African vibe, is home to over 40 different ethnic groups. Imagine the languages, the traditions, the stories. Oh, it's this rich mosaic of Fang, Panyu, NZBI, Teki, and so many more, all coexisting. French is the official language, but those indigenous languages really keep the cultural heart beating.
Right. 40 ethnic groups in a country of just over 2 million people. That's some serious density. You'd think there'd be a national committee just for scheduling who gets to celebrate their festival when. I'm certain our listeners living in Gabon probably have a very detailed calendar for that. If they want a calendar for that. If they want to tell us in the YouTube comments. The ability to navigate that many cultural nuances without tripping over customs must be an art form.
It is an art form. It's like a constant dance, where everyone knows their steps, but sometimes someone invents a new move and everyone adapts. Wow. Their religious landscape is also quite varied, with Christians, traditional animist beliefs, and Muslims all finding their place. It's a true picture of social cohesion, adapting and growing together.
Adapting and growing together, Mira, or simply having too many fascinating conversations to bother arguing. It certainly makes for a richer experience, though. Now, speaking of unique cultural landscapes, let's zoom over to Nauru. Or rather, let's lean in really, really close, because you might miss it if you blink. Whoa! It's the world's smallest island nation, barely a speck on the map, with a population smaller than some apartment buildings in major cities.
It's adorable in its tinniness. But for such a small place, Nauru has a fascinating blend of Micronesian, Polynesian, and Melanesian ancestries among its indigenous Nauruan people. And what's really interesting is how historical events brought in even more diversity. Think about the phosphate mining days. They brought in workers from China, Kiribati, Tuvalu, and the Philippines. That's quite the international mix for a place you could walk across in an hour.
Indeed. You've got your indigenous blend and you add a dash of imported diversity for labor purposes, and suddenly you have a truly unique demographic cocktail. It's like a tiny, exclusive club with a very diverse guest list, some of whom were, shall we say, on an extended invite. And this isn't just about different dishes at a potluck. It's about blending very different lives in a very confined space.
And that confined space certainly brings its own unique challenges for tolerance and social harmony, doesn't it? When you have a diverse population in such a small area, every interaction becomes amplified. It's a testament to the Nauruan people's ability to navigate these complex dynamics. Wow. If you're looking to understand the intricate social fabric of nations, our friends at Jet Off AI have some fantastic resources on cultural insights that you might find helpful.
Yes, and speaking of unique dynamics, the island's role as an offshore processing center for asylum seekers added another layer to its cultural mix. Wow, that's a kind of diversity that brings with it some heavy suitcases, not just metaphorically. It truly tests the limits of any community's social cohesion. It's less about celebrating differences and more about managing significant, often difficult, human stories in a very visible way.
It's certainly a complex situation, Leo, and it underscores the importance of understanding and empathy in any diverse community. Oh, whether it's the natural ethnic tapestry of Gabon or the unique population shifts Nauru has experienced, both countries offer powerful lessons in how cultures interact. It makes you think about how we define tolerance in different contexts, doesn't it? I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. If you have personal stories or insights, we'd love for you to share them in the comments section on YouTube.
While Mira, whether you're navigating 40-plus ethnic groups in Gabon or finding your spot on an island barely visible from space, cultural diversity is rarely a smooth, quiet ride. It's more of a constant, vibrant, sometimes chaotic conversation. And knowing how to listen or at least how to enjoy the show is key. It reminds me that every country, no matter its size, is its own little world of fascinating absurdities and beautiful traditions.
Exactly. It's all about finding that common ground, even if it's just sharing a laugh or a cup of tea. Oh, and for more in-depth cultural guides for your next adventure, don't forget to check out Jet AI. They really help you prepare for these wonderful cultural exchanges. From our last chat about finding unique places to relax, let's shift to something equally foundational for growth education. Oh, today we're diving into the learning environments of Gabon and Nauru.
Yes, education where textbooks gather dust and futures are forged. I'm curious if Nauru's entire school system fits into a single, very enthusiastic classroom. Probably a teacher who knows everyone by their childhood nickname.
Oh, Leo, you're always picturing the most charmingly compact scenes. But seriously, Gabon, our first stop, has quite a robust, French-influenced educational system. Wow. It's one of the higher literacy rates in its region, around 85%.
French, eh? I'm imagining students conjugating verbs while simultaneously perfecting the art of a perfectly nonchalant shrug. The national sport must be debating philosophy over a strong cup of coffee, or whatever they drink there.
Well, while French is the official language, you do find indigenous languages spoken too, which adds a beautiful layer to their cultural identity. Oh, they put a lot of effort into primary and secondary education. I'm certain that our listeners living in Gabon would agree with me.
I bet some of those indigenous languages have a single word that perfectly describes the feeling of realizing you forgot your homework on a Tuesday morning. We should get that word for our podcast. Speaking of unique places, let's hop over to Nauru.
Nauru. Despite its tiny size, it boasts an incredibly high literacy rate, almost 95%. Ooh, it's quite remarkable for such a small island nation. It really shows their dedication to learning.
95%? That's impressive. I suppose it's easier to keep track of everyone's grades when there are only like 12 students. Whoa! I'm just kidding, mostly. But really, what does their higher education look like? Do they just send everyone off to become honorary Australians?
Well, they do have an Australian influence system. And for higher education, many Nauruans do go overseas, often to Australia or Fiji. They also host a campus of the University of the South Pacific, which is a fantastic regional resource.
So, it's like a study abroad program, but it's just study away from the island. I imagine their language schools mostly consist of people teaching each other where the best fishing spots are in Nauru.
That's probably a very valuable skill. But on a more formal note, for language acquisition, English is widely spoken and used in Nauru's education, alongside Nauruan. Oh, for Gabon, French is obviously key. So, if you're looking to brush up on your French is du français skills, Gabon offers an immersive experience.
I once tried to learn French and ended up just ordering a lot of extra cheese. Oops. So, for anyone hoping to expand their linguistic horizons, perhaps learning Nauruan is the ultimate challenge. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Have any of you ever tried to learn Nauruan? Let us know in the comments below on YouTube.
Oh, I bet there are some polyglots out there who would be up for it. It would certainly be a conversation starter. You know, Leo, thinking about these countries, it just proves that quality education isn't limited by size or location. Wow, it's about the commitment.
Absolutely. And if you're looking for more details on these educational systems, or maybe even planning your own linguistic adventure, our friends at Jetoff AI have some fantastic resources. You might even find a scholarship opportunity you never knew existed.
Yes, Jetoff AI is a great place to start your research journey. Oh, it's amazing how much information is available right at our fingertips these days. For those of you wondering which country might be a better fit for your scholarly pursuits, both offer unique pathways.
Indeed. So whether you're aiming for a French immersion in Gabon or a highly literate, close-knit community learning experience in Nauru, remember to check out Jetoff AI. You might just find your next classroom adventure.
Alright, so since we just wrapped up our whirlwind tour of global infrastructure, let's talk about something truly elemental: climate and seasons. Oh! And when we think about Gabon, imagine living right on the equator. Wow, no. Seriously, imagine never really needing to dig out those winter boots or a heavy coat.
Tropical paradise, Mira, or a year-round sauna? I'm just picturing myself constantly wiping sweat from my brow, wondering if I accidentally packed my entire wardrobe into a steam room. Gabon's equatorial location means consistent heat and humidity. It's like the Earth decided, let's put a perpetual summer here, just for fun.
Exactly. It's not the sun is always giving you a big, warm hug whether you ask for it or not. They have to rainy seasons and to dry seasons, which sounds a bit like an over-inventory. Whoa, one minute you're enjoying a lovely sunny stroll, the next you're running for cover because the sky just decided to empty out a bathtub on your head. Oops, I can just see myself trying to navigate that.
I'm certain our listeners who've experienced equatorial climates would agree with me. It's not always sunshine and rainbows. It's often sunshine, rainbows, and then a sudden downpour that turns the street into a river. You'd probably look like a drowned rat, Mira, though a very enthusiastic one. You'd probably find a way to turn it into a dance routine.
You know I would. I'd be doing the rainy season shuffle, probably attracting a small crowd and turning it into a flash mob. Oh, but speaking of smaller countries, if Gabon is a tropical hug, what about Nauru? That tiny island in the middle of nowhere. It must be an even more concentrated dose of equatorial weather, right?
Nauru, the world's smallest island nation. Wow! It's essentially Gabon, but miniaturized and floating in the Pacific with a climate that says, hot and humid always. Think of it as nature's personal hot yoga studio, running 24/7 SDH. Their heavy rainfall comes from November to February, which islanders call the monsoon season.
Monsoon season. Oh, that sounds intense. Like the sky has a personal vendetta against dry land. I imagine their umbrella sales must go through the roof, then plummet to zero the rest of the year. But seriously, how do you even cope with year-round heat and humidity on such a small island? I'd probably just live in a giant pool.
Well, you'd be a very wrinkly prune by the end of it. Actually, Nauru is quite prone to droughts, especially during El Nino years. Ouch. So, one minute it's monsoon madness. The next you're conserving every drop of water like it's liquid gold. It's a real balancing act, figuring out when to bask in the sun and when to pray for rain.
Wow, that's a dramatic swing from too much water to not enough water. It sounds like they're living on a weather roller coaster. I'm actually curious about what our listeners who've lived on small islands think about this constant climate dance. It makes you really appreciate a stable weather forecast, doesn't it?
Stability? What's that? For Nauru, it's less about stability and more about resilience. Their lifestyle is heavily influenced by the ocean's moods and the sky's winds. Unlike Gabon with its vast rainforests. Nauru's unique history of phosphate mining means less natural vegetation to mitigate the heat. So, they really feel that sun.
That's fascinating, how human activity can even shape how a country experiences its climate. Wow, it's a reminder that every place has its own environmental story. Whether it's Gabon's lush, rainy expanses or Nauru's tiny, sun-drenched shores, adapting to Mother Nature's moods is a universal challenge, just with different dance moves.
Different dance moves indeed. One's doing the rainforest rumble, the other's doing the island sway. Both are constantly wiping their brow and probably wondering, is it hot in here or is it just me? It's enough to make you crave a nice breezy, climate-controlled studio.
Oh, food culture, Mira's favorite topic. I'm already dreaming of exotic flavors and accidental culinary adventures. I once tried something in a remote market that looked like a shiny green rock, but tasted like a sweet and sour explosion in my mouth. What? I'm certain our listeners living in vibrant places have similar stories, don't you guys? What about you, Leo? Are you ready for some edible insights, or are you still trying to figure out that was actually a rock?
Well, Mira, my palate is far too refined for shiny green rocks. I prefer my culinary explosions to be intentional. Thank you very much. You're always turning every meal into a dare, aren't you? Oops. But speaking of unique tastes, let's look at the food culture and nutritional alternatives in Gabon and Nauru. I imagine the contrast alone could be a stand-up routine.
Wow, you're right. The contrast is going to be wild. Let's start with Gabon, a country nestled in Central Africa, known for its lush rainforests. Their cuisine is often built around staple crops like cassava, plantains, and taro. I picture vibrant stews, rich in local produce and fresh game or fish. Oh, they have a dish called biwi chicken cooked in pombasa. Doesn't that sound absolutely divine? It's a local ingredients and slow ingredient.
Nyambiwi chicken does sound intriguing. I'll give you that. Though I'm always suspicious of anything cooked in butter that isn't from a cow. But you've hit on a key point. Gabon's traditional diet, with its reliance on forestry sources and fresh catches, is largely balanced and locally sourced. It's a reminder of a time when food didn't come wrapped in plastic. Well, you won't find many nutritional alternatives. You visited Gabon, think of visited Gabon. What are listeners who visited Gabon?
Exactly. It's that natural abundance that makes it so appealing. Now, speaking of natural abundance, when we shift our gaze to Nauru, the world's smallest island nation, the story takes a rather different turn. Oh, traditionally, Nauruan cuisine focused on fish, coconut, and local fruits like pandanus. It was a simple, yet healthy diet, perfectly suited to island life.
And not exactly a shift for the better, if we're being honest. Nauru offers a rather stark lesson in the convenience versus health debate. The influx of wealth from phosphate meant less reliance on traditional fishing and farming. And more on imported, processed foods. Think in meats, sugary drinks, white rice. I mean, who would have thought a small island could import itself into a health crisis? Whoa. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments.
It's truly heartbreaking, isn't it? This dietary transition has led to incredibly high rates of obesity and related non-communicable diseases in Nauru. It's a stark reminder that nutritional alternatives aren't always a good thing, especially when they replace wholesome traditions. Out! They're now actively trying to revive traditional eating habits and promote healthier choices. It's a huge challenge, but I'm rooting for them.
I imagine getting people back to fresh fish after they've grown accustomed to instant noodles is like trying to convince a comedian to tell only clean jokes. It's a tough sell. But on a more serious note, Gabon also faces some modern dietary influences, particularly in its urban centers. You'll find international fast food chains creeping in, which creates a different kind of nutritional alternative dilemma.
You're right, Lear. In cities like Liverpool, Gabon, while the traditional dishes are still king, the younger generation is sometimes drawn to those quick, easy options. It's a balancing act that many countries face. But I believe the strong culinary heritage in Gabon will keep those palm butter stews thriving. For Nauru, the focus is really on educating the community and making those healthier options accessible again. It's about remembering what worked for generations.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating study in how external factors can completely reshape a nation's relationship with food. Gabon, with its vibrant local economy, seems to be holding on to its roots while Nauru is fighting to rediscover theirs. It makes you think about what we're feeding ourselves, doesn't it? We've covered quite a spread today, and I hope you're all feeling both enlightened and maybe a little hungry. You can always visit Jetolfea to find out more about these countries and their vibrant cultures.
It really puts things into perspective. So, whether you're enjoying the rich flavors of Gabon or hoping for Nauru's return to traditional deliciousness, remember to appreciate where your food comes from. And if you've got a favorite traditional dish from either country, do tell us in the comments on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this discussion. It helps us keep these conversations going. Speaking of vibrant places, let's dive into the historical, cultural, and artistic values of Gabon and Nauru. Wow, Gabon is like a beautifully layered cake, full of rich flavors and unexpected textures. You have the Fang Mayenyi and Koda peoples, each with their own amazing traditions. I'm thinking about the Koda reliquary figures right now, with their striking abstract forms. It's truly breathtaking art.
Layered cake, Mira. More like a very specific, slightly intimidating sculpture you're not allowed to touch in a museum. But I get your point. Gabon's cultural depth is undeniable. The craftsmanship in those Koda figures, for example, they're not just art, they're ancestral connections. Wow! It's like they're silently judging your fashion choices from centuries ago. I actually wonder if any of our listeners have ever seen these up close. They really hold a powerful presence.
You know, Leo, I'm certain that our listeners living in Gabon would agree with me. These figures are more than just art, their stories carved in wood and metal. And the traditional music, the bielafen, the njembe drums, it's all part of this incredible oral tradition, passing history from one generation to the next. It's a living, breathing culture. Now, on the other side of the world, we have Nauru. It's a much smaller canvas, but still with its own unique strokes.
Smaller canvas is one way to put it, Mira. Nauru is so small, you could probably walk across it during your coffee break, assuming you don't trip over a rogue phosphate rock. Oops. Its history is fascinating, though, from Polynesian navigators to the whole phosphate boom and bust. It's like a tiny, geological soap opera. Whoa! They went from island paradise to what happened here? Almost overnight? Culturally speaking.
Don't you dare underestimate Nauru's charm, Leo. It's a testament to resilience, if you ask me. Their cultural identity is deeply tied to their island home, fishing traditions, and weaving. It's less about grand ancient ruins and more about community bonds and practical, beautiful crafts. Jetolfea loves uncovering stories like this, finding the hidden gems, and so do we. It's about celebrating every unique heritage.
Ah, community bonds and practical crafts. So, less iconic mass that screams ancient power and more beautifully woven mat that subtly whispers you should probably take your shoes off. Given Nauru's turbulent past, especially with colonial influences and the phosphate mining, I imagine preserving those traditional elements must have been a constant battle. It's easy to lose parts of your story when you're busy trying to literally keep your island from being dug out from under you.
Well, that's where the heart of culture truly lies, isn't it? In its ability to adapt and endure. While Nauru might not have a thriving contemporary art scene like Libreville, the capital of Gabon, the spirit of storytelling through songs and dances is still very much alive. It's about celebrating what they have, and the joy in everyday life. Oh, and I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. What makes a culture truly rich in their eyes?
Richness can definitely be found in quiet resilience. I'll grant you that, Mira. Still, I suspect Gabon's bustling art galleries and music festivals offer a different kind of cultural energy. It's like comparing a quiet, thoughtful folk ballad to a full-blown orchestral performance. Both beautiful, but one definitely needs more chairs. On Nauru, I'd imagine their art is more about function, about holding daily life together with craft and meaning, rather than being displayed behind velvet tropes.
And that's perfectly valid. It shows the incredible diversity of human expression. Wow. From Gabon's detailed wooden sculptures and vibrant textile art to Nauru's intricate weaving and traditional fishing lore, both countries offer a glimpse into distinct ways of life and worldviews. They might not be globally renowned in the same way, but their intrinsic value is immense. Ooh, if you're enjoying this comparison, remember to hit that like button and subscribe on YouTube. We love seeing your support.
Yeah, keep those fingers busy. You know, it's a good reminder that historical, cultural, and artistic values isn't just about what ends up in textbooks. It's also about what people live every day. Gabon's traditions are deeply woven into its forests and spiritual beliefs, while Nauru's identity is intrinsically linked to its ocean and community. So, whether it's a ceremonial mask or a carefully mended fishing net, both tell a story. A story that jet off AI.
Exactly. It's about celebrating the unique footprint each nation leaves on the global stage. From the ancient echoes in Gabon's forests to the enduring spirit on Nauru's shores, both are absolutely fascinating. Moving right along, let's cast our eyes on some truly unique natural beauties and landscapes. Today, we're talking about Gabon and Nauru. Wow, Gabon, first off, feels like it's straight out of a nature documentary. Think vast, untouched trine forests, rivers snaking through dense jungle, and coastlines where, get this, elephants actually roam the beaches. Oh. It's like nature decided to just show off.
Sounds like a comprovet. My kind of chaotic. But speaking of nature showing off, we then zoom over to Nauru. Or rather, we gently float over it, given its size. It's the world's smallest island nation, a raised coral island that, let's just say, has had a bit of a tough time with phosphate mining. Imagine a giant's bite taken out of the middle. Not exactly the lush rainforest vibe you're getting in Gabon.
Oh, you're right. Leo, it's certainly a different picture. But even Nauru, in its own way, holds some charm. I've read about a Nibar Bay, with its beautiful whites and unclear waters. It sounds perfect for a quiet escape, even if you can walk across the whole country in a few hours. What's your take, listeners? Would you rather share a beach with elephants in Gabon or have a whole bay almost to yourself in Nauru? Tell us in the comments on YouTube.
Share a beach with an elephant. I'd probably be checking my pockets for peanuts and then my life insurance policy. Speaking of pockets, Nauru's famous topside area, largely devastated by mining, offers a stark, almost lunar landscape. It's a reminder of human impact and accidental installation of craters and pinnacles. It's not conventionally beautiful, but it's certainly unique. Like a giant, very sad golf course. Ouch.
Whoa! Accidental art installation of craters only earlier. But Gabon also has places like Lake National Park, where the forest meets savanna, giving you incredible biodiversity. You could spot gorillas, chimpanzees, and a variety of birds. Oh, it's a living, breathing ecosystem that really makes you feel tiny in the best way. I can imagine standing there, just soaking it all in.
I can imagine standing there too, trying to that rustling sound as a rare bird or just my stomach demanding more coffee. While Gabon is busy being a wild wonderland, Nauru offers its own unique aquatic appeal. Beauty Lagoon, for instance, is a lovely freshwater lagoon, one of the few green patches on the island. It's a little oasis. It's proof that even a small, industrially scarred island can hold onto pockets of serene beauty. It's like finding a single, defiant flower growing through cracked pavement. Wow.
That's a beautiful image, Leo. And it really highlights how diverse natural beauty can be. From Gabon's raw, untamed wilderness where you might actually bump into a gorilla, oops. Maybe not too close. To Nauru's resilient coastal charm and that peaceful lagoon. Both countries, despite their vast differences in scale and landscape, offer something for the curious traveler. Whether you want to trek through dense jungle or simply find a quiet spot by the ocean to contemplate, they both deliver looking for unique travel experiences would find something fascinating in either.
Indeed. Just remember, when you're in Gabon, don't confuse a playful chimpanzee with a local asking for directions. And in Nauru, try not to fall into any old phosphate pits while admiring the coastline. Tran! These two places offer such contrasting visions of nature. One is an explosion offers such contrasting visions of nature. One is an explosion of life. The other a testament to resilience against environmental change. If you're looking for an unforgettable landscape, Gabon offers the full, sprawling wilderness experience. Nauru.
Ooh, I'm buzzing to jump into this topic: sports, activity, and adventure options. Well, because let's be real, after all that talk about legal systems and taxes, we need to shake things up. I'm thinking jungle treks, hidden waterfalls, the kind of stuff that makes you feel alive. Leo, are you ready to embrace your inner explorer? Or will you just find a comfy spot to observe the local fauna? Which in your case usually means the cafe staff.
Mira, my inner explorer usually involves finding the best coffee shop in a new city. And occasionally, a comfortable chair with good Wi-Fi. But you're right, after all that legal jargon, my brain needs a detox. Though, I'm pretty sure my idea of a jungle trek would involve a mosquito net the size of a small car and enough bug spray to strip paint off a wall. Oops. I mean, Gabon's rainforests sound amazing, wow. But I'd probably be the guy accidentally mistaking a tree branch for a selfie stick.
See, Leo, that's the spirit in Gabon. It's all about that raw, untamed nature. Think Lungo National Park, where you can literally see elephants strolling on the beaches. Wow. Can you even imagine that? I'm picturing myself trying to get a selfie with a surprised elephant, then probably having to make a quick exit. And the gorillas, the chimps, it's like a real-life documentary unfolding around you.
Elephants on beaches, you say? My first thought is, who cleans up after them? But genuinely, that's pretty spectacular. For Gabon, the adventure options are definitely geared towards the wildlife enthusiast, the eco-tourist. You can go deep into the rainforests. Maybe even try some river exploration on the Ogooué River. It's less about extreme sports and more about immersing yourself in incredible biodiversity. Though I'd probably be more focused on documenting the local insect life.
Well, speaking of miniature, that brings us perfectly to Nauru. Wow! From Gabon's vast rainforests to Nauru, a tiny island where you can literally cycle around the entire country in an hour. Now that's a quick adventure. Ooh, it's a completely different kind of adventure, isn't it? More about exploring a unique, phosphate-rich landscape, and embracing the quiet charm of one of the world's smallest nations.
Yes, Nauru. Or adventure might involve trying to explain what Nauru is to someone who's never heard of it. But seriously, what it lacks in vastness, it makes up for in, well, uniqueness. Their national sport, for example, is Australian rules football. What it lacked in the energy for that on such a small island. It's not exactly about scaling mountains or whitewater rafting, is it? It's not about local fishing. It's more about local fishing, exploring the remnants of World War I.
Exactly. You are finding the adventure in the unexpected. Leo. Oh, while Gabon might offer jungle trekking where you might spot a rare bird. Nauru offers the adventure of perhaps running into the same rare bird a few minutes later because it flew across the island. It's about that intimate connection to a place. And for those who love weightlifting, Nauru has a strong tradition there too. Well, it shows you don't need huge land masses to be mighty. I'm actually curious about what our jet about this. Which kind of adventure speaks to you more?
I'm pretty sure my weightlifting journey would end with me dropping the bar on my foot, ouch. And then probably writing a tragicomic monologue about it. But hey, it's an honest pursuit. While Gabon definitely caters to the wild nature segment, Nauru's charm lies in its simplicity. You can snorkel, swim, and explore those unique phosphate pinnacles, which sound like something out of a sci-fi movie. It's a stark contrast, isn't it? One offers a grand, sprawling wilderness, the other, a compact, unusual world.
It's all about perspective. While Gabon beckons with the promise of unseen wildlife in thick jungles where you might discover a new species, Nauru offers a quiet adventure of soaking in the sheer fact that you're on one of the most remote islands on Earth. It's like in Gabon, you're wondering if you'll survive the jungle. In Nauru, you're wondering if you should walk clockwise or counterclockwise around the island first. Both are legitimate adventures, just on very different scales.
And both, I imagine, would test my coffee availability. I'd have to pack an extra large thermos for either. For Gabon, you'd be dealing with the heat, the humidity, the sheer scale. But for anyone seeking something truly different, from the sprawling greens of Gabon to the unique rocky landscape of Nauru, both offer stories you won't hear every day. You know, the kind of stories I collect for my...
Exactly. So whether you're dreaming of paddling through an Gabonese estuary, hoping to spot a manatee, or taking a leisurely fishing chick-fueled stroll around Nauru, adventure truly is in the eye of the beholder. Or, in your case, Leo, in the eye of the heavily caffeinated beholder.
Or at least, not becoming permanently part of it. We encourage all of you listening to share your thoughts in the YouTube comments. What kind of adventure do you prefer? The vast and known, or the quaint and unique? We'd love to hear it.
Okay, Leo, buckle up, because when we talk about Gabon, my mind immediately pictures vibrant, energetic nights. Oh, I'm thinking live music, dancing until dawn, maybe some incredible local beats that make you forget you ever had to left feet.
Vibrant, energetic nights, Mirhan. Sounds like you've already choreographed a flash mob and labor bill in your head. My mind just pictured a few dimly lit bars, possibly a very enthusiastic karaoke session with a single microphone.
Oh, you're such a realist, Leo. But seriously, Gabon's capital, Libreville, actually has a pretty decent nightlife, especially with that French influence. Think stylish lounges, some cool clubs where you can hear everything from Afrobeat to rumba. Wow, I bet there are places where the music just pulls you onto the dance floor. Imagine discovering a new favorite song just by stepping into a random club.
Or discovering your wallet just stepped out of your pocket, Mira. Oops. Always a possibility when you're caught up in the rhythm, right? But yes, Liverpool would definitely offer more of what one expects from nightlife. You'd likely find a mix of expatriate hangouts and local spots with live bands. Maybe even a place with a very serious jazz quartet playing to three equally serious jazz quartet playing to three equally serious patrons. For those of you watching on YouTube, let us know if you've had any unforgettable nights out in Liverpool, good or bad.
Your security is always a consideration, as it is in any big city, so common sense prevails. Now, beyond the clubs, I also imagine cultural performances. Ooh, maybe traditional Gabonese dance, storytelling nights under the stars. That's my kind of entertainment, something truly authentic. I'm certain our listeners who are culture vultures would totally agree with me.
Right? Authentic storytelling, possibly involving a comedian who tripped over a microphone stand. Always keep an eye out for those, Mira. But speaking of under the stars, that's probably the most consistent entertainment venue on our next stop. Because, my dear Mira, we're now sailing to Nauru. The country's so small, it could be a stage prop for a very minimalist play.
Whoa, Nauru. Okay, so it's not going to be Ibiza. We know that. But it's about perspective, right? Nauru's nightlife might be more about intimate gatherings. Think about it as a small island. Everyone knows everyone. Maybe a barbecue on the beach, shared stories, the sound of the ocean. That sounds incredibly peaceful and personal. Almost like a giant family reunion where you actually want to be there.
A giant family reunion where you might be the only non-relative, Mira. And if you get to Laur, the whole country knows your business by sunrise. Oops. I imagine the wildest party on Nauru might involve getting a second round of soft drinks at the local guest house bar. The electric clubs mentioned in the prompt might just be a couple of fluorescent lights over a pool table.
But imagine the stargazing, Leo. No light pollution, just millions of stars. That's an entertainment venue in itself, a natural planetarium. And maybe they have community events, like local talent shows or fishing competitions that are secretly the most competitive nights of the year. I'm actually curious about what our Jet-Off-Faye community thinks about this. Would you prefer a bustling city night or a quiet island evening?
Quiet island evening, definitely. Especially after a week of trying to make people laugh in a language I don't speak. Ouch. But yes, Nora's entertainment probably leans heavily into local community events, maybe a radio playing softly, or just enjoying the quiet. I doubt you'll find a world's renowned DJ spinning tracks until 4 a.m. there, unless it's a very dedicated resident DJ playing to world's renowned DJ spinning tracks until 4 a.m. there, unless it's a very dedicated palm tree. So, for those of you looking for vibrant, thumping bass lines, Liverpool would be your jam.
Alright, Leo, when we talk about family-friendly environments and children's activities, my mind immediately goes to kids running wild and free. Ooh! Let's kick things off with Gabon. I'm picturing rainforest adventures and kids spotting wildlife.
Wild and free, or just lost in the jungle, Mira. Gabon, yes, with its stunning national parks and dense rainforests, you'd think family safari. But I'm also picturing the sheer effort and the cost of getting a family through that terrain. Ouch! My wallet's already screaming. Ah!
Oh, come on, Leo. Don't be a spoilsport. Imagine the wonder in a child's eyes seeing elephants on the beach in Longo National Park. Wow. Or the pure joy of spotting a gorilla in its natural habitat. It's not about raw, natural exploration. And the cultural immersion, don't forget. Gabonese families are so community-focused. Children are everywhere, learning from everyone. I'm certain our listeners who've explored this kind of travel would agree. It's a different kind of kids' club.
Different kind of kids' club, indeed. More like survival skills boot camp for some of us. When I think family-friendly activities on the world's smallest island nation, my brain just starts playing elevator music. Ah! It's so small. You could probably jog around it before breakfast. What's the main attraction for kids there, Mir? What's the main attraction for kids there, Mir? Spot the remaining phosphate.
Leo, you always find humor in the most unexpected places. Oh, but Nauru, for families, offers something truly unique pure. Simple outdoor fun. Think pristine beaches, swimming in crystal clear waters, maybe some easy snorkeling right off the shore. No touring theme parks, no endless queues, no digital screens, just open space for kids to run, play. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about that kind of simplicity.
Less is more, or there is literally less. There is literally less. Family-friendly also means plenty of distractions to keep the little humans entertained, especially if it rains for 5 minutes. On Nauru, I imagine a rainy day might involve a nationwide game of I Spy the Coconut Tree. On Nauru, I imagine a rainy day might involve a nationwide game of I Spy the Coconut Tree. Well, it's definitely a contrast. Gabon offers grand, while Nauru gives you everything as the playground.
You're right, Leo. It is a head-scratcher. But sometimes, the best family memories come from those simple moments. Kicking a ball on an empty beach or just spending quality time together without all the bells and whistles. And in cultures where family is paramount, like in both these countries, children are often at the center of community life, even without dedicated children's entertainment complexes.
True, Mira. True. Oh, I suspect the kids might prefer a giant Ferris wheel to a spirited game of I Spy the Coconut Tree after a few hours. Ouch. But for families looking for something truly off the beaten path, away from the typical tourist traps, both Gabon's raw natural beauty and Nauru's unparalleled simplicity offer distinct experiences. You just need to manage expectations and maybe pack a deck of cards.
Always prepared, Leo. Oh, so, whether you're dreaming of a wildlife adventure in Gabon or a serene minimalist escape on Nauru, both offer unique ways to connect as a family. Well, just remember to embrace the local vibe. And hey, if you've got stories about family adventures in unexpected places, please share them in the comments section on YouTube. We'd love to hear them.
Indeed. And for more insights into finding your perfect family destination, whether it's a bustling city or a remote island, check out Jet Off AI. They've got on how many coconut trees are suitable for a spy. We're talking extremes here, folks, but every family's friendly environment looks different.
It's fantastic that we're diving into LGBT friendly atmosphere today, because truly, celebrating diversity makes the world so much richer. Ooh, it's all about making sure everyone feels safe and seen, don't you think?
Safe and seen, you say? I imagine in some places that's more of a wish than a reality. It's fascinating how different countries are on their, let's call it, rainbow journey. Some are sprinting, Others are doing a very slow, contemplative walk, perhaps backwards occasionally.
Well, let's look at Gabon first. Wow, it's actually an interesting case. For a brief period, they did criminalize same-sex relations, which was a real ouch. Meant for many, but then they reversed it in 2020. Aha! That's a quick pivot, don't you think? It shows progress, even if it's a bumpy road.
Oops! Illegal U-turn. I can just picture the legislators in a meeting. Someone goes, wait, did we just take a wrong exit on the human rights highway? Honestly, it's like watching a car trying to parallel park with too many hands on the wheel. While homosexuality is technically legal now, I'm certain our listeners living in Gabon would agree with me that legal doesn't always equal socially accepted on the streets.
You've got a point, Leo. Legal changes are one thing, but hearts and minds often take longer to catch up. In a generally conservative society like Gabon's, public visibility for LGBT individuals is still quite limited. You won't find huge pride parades like in, say, Barcelona. It's more about slow, quiet shifts. But even a tiny ripple can become a wave.
Exactly. And speaking of tiny, let's roll over to Nauru. Now, this is a country so small. If you had a pride parade, you might literally be parading around the entire nation in one go. Wow! They decriminalized homosexuality in 2016, which is a step forward. But with a population so minuscule, I imagine community building is less about vibrant scenes and more about, can we find other people for a coffee?
Oh, that's a funny image, Leo. Ta-da! But even in the smallest communities, every individual's right to live authentically matters. Oh, Nauru is a tight-knit, traditional island nation, so those social dynamics are very strong. It's not about grand gestures, but about creating space for respect within existing community structures. I'm actually curious about what our listeners who live in Nauru, if there are any, think about this.
I suspect if you're an LGBT person in Nauru, you're not exactly looking for a booming nightlife scene, are you? You're probably just hoping your auntie doesn't ask too many probing questions at the family barbecue. In both Gabon and Nauru, it's less about vibrant pride events and more about the quiet work of acceptance, often behind closed doors. It's a different kind of fostering an inclusive environment.
And that's okay. Diversity isn't just about loud celebrations, it's also about quiet dignity and the gradual evolution of cultural attitudes. It takes time, and every small victory like decriminalization is a huge step. I truly believe that. For travelers, knowing these legal statuses is crucial. And it's something you can always check on sites like Jet.ai for the latest updates before you pack your bags.
So, whether you're planning a trip or just curious, checking the facts before you decide to perform a spontaneous drag show on the main street is always a good idea. On a serious note, the challenge in both places lies in shifting deep-seated social norms. It's like trying to move a very old, very stubborn sofa. It won't budge easily, even if the law says it should.
But it's moving. Look at the timelines, the fact that these discussions are happening, that laws are changing, that's progress. Well, even if it's just one person finding the courage to be themselves in a conservative environment, that's a celebration in itself. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you see signs of hope? Or are we still dreaming of a truly inclusive rainbow?
Dreamers, Mira, always dreamers, but I do appreciate the small victories. It means less material for my absurdities of legislation's stand-up routine. Seriously, though, it reminds us that LGBT-friendly isn't a one-size-fits-all concept. It's a spectrum, and some countries are just on a different part of it. And sometimes the journey itself is a story.
Absolutely. And it's a story we'll keep following. Ooh, so we're diving into the heart of cultures now, aren't we? It's all about hospitality and how different nations welcome us. The eternally curious travelers. I'm thinking about those moments when a stranger offers you a cup of tea or helps you find your way when your GPS decides to take a vacation too.
Or when they offer you a cup of tea and you're thinking, is this a welcoming gesture or a cultural quiz? Hospitality's a funny thing, Mira. Sometimes it's genuine warmth and sometimes it's a polite please don't touch the artifacts. Today, we're talking about Gabon and Nauru's take on this delicate dance with foreigners.
Oh, you were always so suspicious. But you're right. It's never just one thing. Let's start with Gabon, in Central Africa. All those national parks and forests. Wow, you'd think a place with so much natural beauty would have open arms for visitors. My friend who visited said they're incredibly polite. Almost reserved at first, but once you break being adopted into a big family.
Adopted into a big family. That's usually followed by, and now you owe them a cow. My experience with places like Gabon, with that French colonial past, is that there's often a blend. People are gracious, formal even, which can be disarming for some Westerners who expect immediate, backslapping friendliness. But you learn to appreciate that quiet respect. I'm certain that our listeners who have lived there would agree with me. They're observant, and once you show genuine interest, not just a fleeting tourist gaze.
Exactly. It's not about grand gestures, but the underlying respect. They might not throw a parade for you, but they'll make sure you're comfortable and fed. And speaking of food, I bet their traditional dishes are part of that hospitality. Whoa, I heard about a dish called Nyambiwi chicken pom nut soup. Sounds intriguing, if not a little intimidating for a clumsy eater like me. Oops.
You probably were half of it. I can just picture it. Ouch. Anyway, with Gabon being an oil-rich nation, you get a mix of expats too. Not just tourists, but business folk. So, the locals are used to seeing foreigners, but their attitude often depends on why you're there. Are you passing through? Are you actually engaging with their society? That subtle distinction matters everywhere, but especially in countries with a rich history and a specific place in the global economy.
It's a great point, Leo. It's not just foreigner. It's speaking of unique places. Let's pivot to Nauru. Whoa, that's quite the shift from the dense forests of Gabon to a tiny island in the Pacific. I've read it's one of the smallest countries in the world. Imagine being on an island so small you could walk around it in a day. What kind of hospitality does a place like that offer?
Walk around it in a day. That's my kind of country. No chance of getting lost, which for me is usually a given. Nauru is a whole different beast when it comes to attitudes towards foreigners. It's tiny, isolated, and has a very specific history, particularly with phosphate mining and, more recently, operating offshore processing centers for asylum seekers. This isn't your typical tourist destination that relies on sun and sand for its welcome.
That's where it gets complicated. So, it's not just about come visit our beaches. It's a more complex interaction. I imagine the Nauruan people are warm, like many island communities, but perhaps also wary. Oh, they've seen a lot of different types of foreigners, some with pretty heavy agendas. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments on YouTube.
Exactly, Mira. On an island that small, everyone knows everyone, and that includes who's coming and going. The concept of stranger carries a different weight. While local Norwayans are generally friendly and proud of their heritage, their interactions with foreigners might be more guarded, especially if you're perceived as being linked to external policies that have impacted their community. It's not a universal hug and a smile kind of welcome all the time.
For someone just visiting Nauru, maybe to see its unique landscape, they might find a quiet, respectful welcome. But perhaps not the boisterous, open-armed embrace you'd find in a bigger, more tourism-focused place. It's less about a performance of hospitality and more about a quiet coexistence, perhaps.
Precisely. You're more likely to enter the daily rhythm by showing respect for their privacy and history rather than expecting to be entertained. It's an understated welcome. You're not going to see flashy resorts or organized cultural experiences like in some bigger island nations. It's raw. It's rise. If like in some bigger island nations, it's raw. It's real, and your experience will be shaped by your humility and willingness to learn rather than to be served. For anyone considering these fascinating places, always remember to check out Jet Off I for comprehensive I for comprehensive tech out off A.
I slightly sarcastic travel companion, huh? Sounds like someone I know. But it's true. Sometimes the deepest connections are made when you don't expect them. And when you approach a new culture with genuine curiosity and respect, not just a checklist of tourist spots. That's what creates global friendships, even in places as different as Gabon and Nauru. Well, so our current topic is all about internet infrastructure and digital facilities for Gabon and Nauru. I just love thinking about how the internet connects us all, from giant countries to tiny islands. It's like a magical digital bridge. I mean, who doesn't love a good Wi-Fi connection, right? It's like finding a hidden treasure.
A magical digital bridge, you say? More like a rickety rope bridge over a canyon in some places, Mira. Especially when your video call pixelates into an abstract art piece. Oops. I just hope this digital bridge has less lag than my morning commute. But seriously, comparing Gabon and Nauru for internet, that's a contrast that'll be interesting to observe.
Absolutely. Gabon, for instance, is making strides. I've read about their ambitions for digital transformation, trying to leverage their natural resources into a more connected future. They have undersea cables, which is always a good sign for speed, right? Imagine a country trying to leapfrog into the digital age, skipping a few steps. It's like going from walking to jet setting. Ooh, I'm certain that our listeners in Gabon would agree with me, dreaming of faster downloads.
Jet setting? Or maybe just hoping their browser doesn't crash before they can finish loading a GIF. Undersea cables are great, Mira. But if the last mile is still a dusty dirt road, you're not exactly streaming for Netflix, are you? It's like having a supercar, but only driving it in a crowded parking lot. From what I've seen, getting good, reliable internet outside the capital, Liverpool, can be a bit of a treasure hunt. Sometimes you feel like you're digging for Wi-Fi instead of gold.
Digging for Wi-Fi, that's a good one, Leo. But speaking of digging for anything, what about Nauru? When we talk about internet infrastructure there, it's a whole different ballgame. It's one of the smallest island nations in the world. Well, I imagine they have to get really creative with their connectivity. It's like trying to get full bars on your phone in the middle of a vast ocean. Oh.
Creative or just plain desperate, Mira? Nauru's internet situation is a classic example of geography meeting reality. They're so remote. They rely heavily on satellite connections, which, let's be honest, can feel like shouting a message into space and waiting for an echo. It's slower. And actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Does living on a tiny island automatically mean you're stuck in the digital slow lane?
Ooh, that's a great question, Leo. But even with satellite, I bet they have ingenious ways to keep connected. Maybe everyone gathers at the single Wi-Fi hotspot in town, like a digital campfire. For digital nomads, it might not be the obvious choice, but imagine the peace and quiet you get without constant notifications. It's a digital detox by default.
Yeah, a digital detox where your emails take longer to arrive than a handwritten letter. while Gabon has a bit more industrial infrastructure and a population that could survival on the digital front. It's like comparing a modest town library to a single dusty book cart. Getting fast, affordable internet to every corner of such a small, remote place is a Herculean task, even if that corner is just across the street.
You're right. The scale is completely different, but both are trying to adapt. Gabon is expanding, while Nauru is trying to optimize with what it has. It really shows how vital internet access is globally, no matter the size of the country. Wow, it empowers people, even if it's just to connect with family or share a funny cat video. We need to remember that. And speaking of connecting, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel on YouTube if you're enjoying our chatter.
Yes, mirror. The cat videos are indeed vital to global peace. Whoa. But on a more serious note, both nations face unique hurdles. Gabon's challenge is scaling up infrastructure across a larger, often difficult terrain, while Nauru's is the sheer cost and logistics of connecting an isolated speck in the Pacific. It's not just about wires, it's about investment, maintenance, and the willingness to make those digital bridges strong enough to carry more than just cat videos. If you think this is wrong.
Thinking about shopping, Leo. Sometimes I imagine myself in this giant, colorful bazaar where I'm literally swimming through fabrics and spices. But then our next countries snap me back to reality. Let's dive into the shopping opportunities and price-performance balance in Gabon and Nauru. I bet those two are on completely different ends of the retail spectrum.
You're thinking swimming through fabrics, while I'm picturing Nauru's only general store, probably selling one brand of canned tuna and a very enthusiastic, yet slightly bewildered cashier. Talk about a shopping spree there. Whoa, I'm pretty sure their version of a mall is just a larger-than-average hut with a leaking roof.
Oh, you. Always the optimist. But honestly, for Gabon, I'm picturing something a bit more vibrant, don't you? The bustling energy, the handcrafted goods, maybe some beautiful fabrics and carvings. Ooh, you could really find some unique treasures there. Things with a story, not just something mass-produced. I bet the price-performance balance for those local artisan goods would be fantastic.
Fantastic if you're a skilled negotiator, Mira. Or if you like spending half your travel budget on a wooden giraffe that won't fit in your carry-on. Libreville, their capital, does have some larger supermarkets and stores. But everything imported, and that's a lot of things, comes with a hefty price tag due to logistics. Ouch. So for your everyday necessities, you're looking at European prices, sometimes even higher, in an African economy.
Well, taxidermy for your wallet, that's a new one. But I still believe there's charm in seeking out those local gems. Don't you think, our dear listeners? If you've been to Gabon, I'm actually curious about what hidden shopping havens you found. Was it all expensive imports? Or did you stumble upon some amazing local crafts that were incredible value? Let us know in the comments section on YouTube.
Speaking of hidden havens, I'm not sure Nauru has any. It's one of the smallest nations in the world, literally an island you can walk around in an afternoon. Imagine your entire shopping district being about the size of my living room, and I have a small living room. Everything, and I mean everything, has to be shipped in, making it incredibly expensive for what you get. Price-performance balance. There's a tightrope walk over a financial abyss. Ouch.
That's true. It really puts things into perspective. But maybe that also means you appreciate what you do have? I mean, if you only have one general store, you spend less time agonizing over choices. You just grab your canned tuna, wave to your neighbor, and get back to your beautiful island life. Oh, it's a simpler, less cluttered shopping experience. Wouldn't you say? Perhaps even Minimalist.
Minimalist or no options depends on your perspective, Mira. I call it survival shopping. Wow, survival shopping. So if you're someone who loves endless aisles and comparing 5 different brands of organic kale, Nauru might feel like a dietary prison. Ouch! Gabon, on the other hand, offers a blend of local markets with potential bargains and Durban stores with steep import costs. My honest take is, if your idea of retail therapy involves more than a handful of very expensive imported items.
You're right, Leo. It sounds like in Gabon, you get the adventure of a treasure hunt of prices. But in Nauru, it's more about embracing simplicity and accepting that your shopping list might be very short and very expensive. Well, either way, I'm sure both places have a unique story, even if it's just about the price of a gallon of milk. Oh.
Indeed. And for those planning a trip, or maybe even a longer stay, definitely check out Jetafea for more detailed cost of living breakdowns before you commit to Nauru's single brand of canned goods. You'll thank me later.
Moving right along, let's talk about cultural events, festivals, and concert opportunities. Oh, this is where my heart starts doing a little samba. Ooh, when I think about Gabon, I picture vibrant colors, pulsating drum rhythms, and ancient stories whispered through dance. It sounds like a non-stop party in the rainforest, doesn't it? I mean, who wouldn't want to join an ancestral Beauties ceremony? It's like stepping into a living, breathing history book.
A living, breathing history book, or perhaps a rather sweaty history lesson if it's in the middle of a Gabonese summer. You're right, Gabon definitely has that captivating mystique with its diverse ethnic groups' traditions. Think fang masks, Punyu dances, all deeply rooted in spiritual ceremonies and community gatherings. But non-stop party, I think it's more like deeply significant spiritual gatherings. But non-stop party, I think it's more like deeply significant spiritual gatherings, are they? And those aren't exactly daily concert opportunities.
Oh, Lear, you always bring us back to reality with a thud. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's not about commercial concerts, it's about authentic experiences. Imagine the energy of the OKU or Biwiti ceremonies, the intricate costumes, the storytelling through movement. Wow, these aren't just performances, they're the soul of the community. I'm certain that our listeners living in Gabon would agree with me that these events truly unite people. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments. Please let us know in the comments. I'm genuinely curious.
Yes, authentic often translates to not exactly advertised on a flashy billboard. And while those ceremonies sound incredibly profound, let's be real, for the average traveler or expat, accessing these deep-rooted, often private events can be a bit of a challenge. You're not just buying a ticket online. It takes time, local connections, and a lot of respect for customs. It's not like showing up to a concert in, say, Barcelona. Now, compare the two Nauru scene.
Nauru. My is tiny, it's isolated, but every island has its rhythm, right? While it might not have grand festivals attracting thousands, I bet brimming with warmth and community spirit. It's more about intimate celebrations, traditional dances, and preserving their unique heritage in a close-knit setting. I imagine beautiful handmade crafts, shared meals, and storytelling under the stars. It's a different kind of cultural richness.
Intimate is certainly one way to put it. Is another. Is certainly one way to put it. Nauru's cultural calendar is, shall we say, less dense than Gabon's, given its history and geographical constraints. There's not a lot of infrastructure for large-scale events, or even medium-scale events. You're looking at things like National Day celebrations, possibly school performances, and community gatherings that highlight traditional dances and songs. But a concert, unless it's a very enthusiastic local band.
Well, maybe it's precisely that intimacy that makes it so special. Well, think about it, Leo. In a place so small, every cultural expression, every dance, every story passed down becomes incredibly precious. It's not about the quantity, it's about the heart. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Which type of cultural experience do they prefer? Do you guys prefer the grand spectacle or the personal connection?
I agree it's about the heart, Mira, but sometimes the heart needs a good sound system and a stage. For those seeking contemporary music or diverse artistic expressions, Gabon's capital, Libreville, offers more in terms of modern concerts, local music venues, and international influences. You might find a local band playing, a small art exhibition, or a cultural center hosting an event. It's still not a global metropolis, but it's certainly got more happenings than Nauru.
Traditional ceremonies in a growing contemporary scene. It's like getting a taste of both worlds. Oh, you can still find local artists, festivals celebrating independence, and even some smaller regional music events. It's a country finding its rhythm between ancient roots and modern beats. And while it might not be a concert every night situation, the events you do encounter are likely to be memorable. Well,
Memorable, perhaps. Easily accessible, less so. Nauru, on the other hand, is less about a blend and more about pure, undiluted local tradition. Your concert opportunities might involve watching children perform traditional dances for a community event. It's a beautiful simplicity, but it's not what most people envision when they hear concert opportunities. You certainly wouldn't be browsing YouTube for Nauru and concert schedules. Ouch.
are you so useful for comparing? These insights couldn't have been possible without Jetoff by referring to cultural trends. It helps you understand what to expect. So if you're drawn to grand, spiritually charged traditional events, Gabon offers a rich tapestry. If you're seeking a unique, intimate immersion into a rarely seen island culture, Nauru offers its own quiet beauty. Both are unique, just in different scales of festival fever.
Precisely. One's a vibrant, sometimes challenging cultural landscape with a growing modern pulse, and the other offers a profoundly personal, albeit limited, window into island heritage. It really boils down to what kind of cultural event you're packing your imaginary suitcase for. And don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube if you're enjoying our little cultural dive. We thrive on your clicks, people.
All right, buckle up, language adventurers. We're diving into opportunities and D's of learning the local language for Gabon and Nauru. Oh, when I think about picking up a new tongue, my brain immediately starts doing a little happy dance, especially if it involves delicious food pronunciations. You know, like ordering a perfect Pinot chocolate in Gabon, or trying to say thank you in Nauru and without sounding like you're trying to summon a tiny island deity.
Summoning island deities. Mira, your travel plans always sound like the preamble to an Indiana Jones movie. And pay no chocolate is barely a language lesson. It's a survival let's talk Gabon. If you're heading there, you're looking at French as the main event. It's like going to a fancy buffet and realizing all the good stuff is in French. Not exactly a niche dialect only spoken by sentient palm trees, is it?
Worm, sentient palm trees? That's definitely going into my next comedy sketch, Leo. You always give me the best material. But you're right. French in Gabon is a huge advantage. It means there are actual resources. You'll find language schools in Libreville, online courses, apps, all the modern magic. Imagine perfecting your French while surrounded by the stunning Gabonese rainforest. It's like a language retreat, but with more monkeys.
Monkeys, French, and the ever-present question, do I really need to conjugate this verb today? But, yes, French is globally accessible. You can practice with 1 billion other people. Now, Nauru. That's where things get interesting. Now, Nauru, that's where things get interesting. Whoa. It's one of the smallest countries in the world, and they have Nauruan, a language spoken by. What, 10,000 people? Aha! My barista knows more words than that. If you want to learn one Nauruan...
Oh, come on. Leo, that's the beauty of it. Wow. Imagine being one of the few people outside Nauru who can speak Nauruan. It's like having a secret superpower. Oh, while English is also an official language in Nauru, making daily life incredibly easy for many. Learning Nauruan is a real dive into a unique culture. Ah, it's true. You won't find traditional language academies. But every conversation, every interaction becomes a lesson. Ah, and that actually
I take the easy route with a strong coffee and call it a day, Mira. No offense to Nauruan, I'm sure it's beautiful, but my brain has enough trouble remembering where I put my keys, let alone a language with a speaker count smaller than some stadium crowds. Practicality, people, practicality, people, practicality. In Gabon, French opens doors to regional communication, business, everything. With Nauruan, you might impress a few locals, but your job prospects outside the island won't suddenly skyrocket.
Always the realist, Leo. But that's exactly why we need both perspectives. Well, for someone planning a longer stay in Gabon, mastering French is non-negotiable for integrating into society and professional life. They even have some indigenous languages like Fang Mayeni or Nzbi, but French is your main ticket. But for Nauru, yes, English is pragmatic. But what about the cultural connection? What about us knowing the cultural connection? What about understanding local song stories, jokes? That's where Nauruan comes in. It's like you can get around with a truly live a place book, but to truly live a crewly live a place.
Heartbeats and 10,000 speakers sounds like a very exclusive club, Mira. I once tried to learn a few phrases in a local dialect while backpacking through Southeast Asia. All I managed was delicious coffee and where's the toilet. Not exactly Shakespeare, but it got me through. So, in Gabon, your learning opportunities for French are vast. You can find tutors, online platforms, even university courses. It's a structured path. In Nauru, for Nauruan, it's pure unadulterated immersion.
A dictionary in Nauru. You're assuming they digitized Nauruan enough for a pocket dictionary, Leo. Oops, you probably need to carry around a scroll and a quill. But seriously, the ease of learning is definitely tilted towards French, simply because of its global reach and established teaching methodologies. For Nauruan, the opportunity is more about passion and commitment, becoming part of a community. It's less about ease and more about endeavor. Ways, and more bashing up on your French for liverbill or preparing for liverbill or preparing for ruin.
Indeed, Mirror, from complex conjugations to deciphering gestures. Wow, for anyone planning a move or even just a long visit, considering the local language is paramount. Whether it's the widely available French resources for Gabon or the unique, community-driven learning experience for Nauruan, it all boils down to how much you want to truly connect. And how much coffee you have for those late-night grammar sessions. And don't forget to check out on YouTube if you're enjoying our linguistic escapades.
And for those who bravely choose to learn Nauruan, remember, you'll have a story no one else can tell. Ooh, that's a comedy goldmine right there. This conversation is taking me places, and I'm loving it. Oh, speaking of places, let's talk about somewhere that's often a bit of a mystery for many travelers, Gabon. Specifically, we're diving into safety and comfort for women revelers in Gabon and, for a delightful contrast, Nauru. I'm picturing lush rainforests versus a tiny speck in the Pacific. What an adventure, right?
Adventure is one word for it, Mira. I'd say potential material for a very niche stand-up routine. For Gabon, from what I've observed, it's generally considered one of the more stable countries in West Africa. That said, for women travelers, especially solo, the capital, Libreville, can present the usual big city challenges. You've got your general precautions watching your belongings, avoiding isolated areas at night. Nothing new under the sun there, but still worth mentioning.
Oh, I was just about to ask that. So, not entirely set it and forget it safety, but manageable, right? From my research, while it's safer than some neighbors, you might encounter cultural differences that lead to unwanted attention or catcalling. It's not usually aggressive, but can be persistent. Ouch! I'm curious if our listeners who have been to Gabon agree with me. I think it's a situation where being aware and projecting confidence can help.
Absolutely. Confidence is key, but so is understanding that what's unwanted attention in one culture might be seen differently in another. Not excusing it, just observing the nuance, you know. Speaking of observations on the ground in Libreville, I've heard stories that affirm non or ignoring it usually does the trick. But it's still a layer of mental navigation you have to do as a woman traveler. What about public transport there? Is it a whole additional quest?
A mini boss battle is a perfect description. For getting around, shared taxis are common, but it's generally advised for women to use ride-sharing apps or pre-arranged taxis, especially after dark. It's not necessarily danger, but privacy and comfort can be compromised. So, planning ahead is definitely a good idea. We always say this on Jet Off AI, don't we? Preparedness is bliss.
Indeed, on Jet Off AI, we emphasize not just the fun stuff, but the pragmatic too. Speaking of tiny things, let's pivot to Nauru. Whoa, this place is like the opposite end of the spectrum. It's one of the smallest countries in the world, and due to its size and tight-knit community, general crime rates are incredibly low. For women travelers, this usually translates to a very high level of perceived safety. You're almost never truly anonymous.
Wow, that's a huge contrast. So, less of a mini boss battle and more of a friendly neighborhood watch vibe? I can imagine walking around feeling like everyone knows your name and your grandma. In a good way, of course. Ooh, it's like you're part of the extended family from the moment you step off the plane. I'm certain our listeners would find that reassuring, especially for solo female travelers.
Exactly. While specific data on harassment statistics for Nauru is almost non-existent because of its tiny population, the community aspect means there's less likelihood of overt, aggressive incidents. It's a place where word travels faster than a WhatsApp message. Any serious misstep, either by a local or a visitor, would be known quickly. That informal social control acts as a strong deterrent. Though, the isolation itself could be a different kind of discomfort for some.
That's a great point. While safety from crime sounds excellent, the sheer isolation and limited infrastructure on Nauru could be its own challenge. It's not about physical threat, but perhaps a lack of options or support. It's something unexpected, not dangerous, were to happen. It's like safe, but also very, very quiet. Not everyone thrives on that level of quiet.
True. It's like asking if you prefer a crowded, well-policed street or a deserted, perfectly safe meadow. Both have their pros and cons. From a legal protection standpoint, Nauru's laws are what you'd expect from a small island nation, general provisions for safety, but maybe not the specialized gender-specific protections you'd find in larger, more developed countries. Not that they're needed as frequently, given the context.
So, for a woman considering Gabon, it's about being street smart. perhaps dressing a bit more conservatively outside of tourist areas, and trusting your gut. For Nauru, it's more about embracing the unique, quiet community feeling, being prepared for extreme isolation. Wow, it truly boils down to what kind of adventure you're seeking, doesn't it? If you're watching on YouTube, let us know your sounds more like your travel style.
Yes, leave us those comments, people. I'm genuinely curious what you think about the too safe, too quiet versus actively safe conundrum. Personally, I like my safety with a side of interesting observations. Both countries have their unique takes on comfort, but they definitely fall on different ends of the spectrum for female travelers.
And remember, if you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments. Your feedback is invaluable, and it helps us create more content you love. Oh, whether you're navigating the markets of Liverpool or strolling along the tiny perimeter of Nauru, staying informed is always your best bet. Alright, Leo, let's dive into something that sounds incredibly official, but affects everyone's daily lives: the legal system, individual rights, and freedoms. I always think of it as the invisible rulebook for a country's vibe. What about Gabon and Nauru? They've both got constitutions, but how do those pages translate into practice? Well,
Invisible rulebook. Invisible rulebook. Mira, you make it sound like a secret treasure map. In my travels, I've learned that sometimes that rulebook has sticky notes covering the really important bits. Ouch, take Gabon for instance. It's got that classic French civil law elegance, right? All those neat articles about freedom of speech and assembly. But then you see recent events, and you wonder if those articles are more like decorative wallpaper than actual load-bearing walls.
oh, come on, Leo. You always go straight for the drama. Well, it's true Gabon has had its political shifts and, well, a recent change of management, as some might say. Oops. The fundamental principles are still there. It's like a grand old house that needs a bit of redecorating, not a total demolition. They have these constitutional protections for things like expression and assembly. It's just, sometimes the contractors get a little overzealous with the renovations.
Contractors? That's a diplomatic way of putting it, Mira. I usually just call it the usual human inclination to interpret rules creatively. But speaking of unique legal landscapes, let's pivot to Nauru. Wow. Now there's a country where the legal system isn't just a rulebook, it's practically a pamphlet. Tiny island, tiny population, you'd think personal liberties would be super clear, right? No hiding in plain sight when everyone knows everyone.
That's such a keen observation, Leo. You're right, Nauru's scale is fascinating. It's this tiny republic with English common law, uncustomary law mixing, which sounds quite charmingly traditional. Imagine an ego dispute being settled over a cup of, well, whatever Nauruans drink when they're negotiating. It sounds like a community where everyone has a voice, even if it's just from across the street.
A voice from across the street. Sure, but sometimes that street is really long. Oops. And Mira, while Nauru's small size makes for fascinating anecdotes, it's also where things get a bit murky, shall we say. Especially with the whole asylum seeker processing center situation. Ouch! You have a constitution that guarantees rights, but then you have a specific population with highly restricted freedoms. It's like having a beautiful garden with a do not enter sign the size of a billboard for a whole section of it.
Oh, that's a tough one. Leo, it truly highlights how complex freedoms can be in practice. No country is perfect, and issues of human rights are constantly evolving everywhere. But what I appreciate is that the conversations around these topics, even about the asylum centers, still exist. It means people care enough to question and push for better. It's like when you try to bake a cake and it doesn't rise. You don't throw out the oven, you try a new recipe.
Or you just eat the flat cake and counter that. Or you just eat the flat cake and call it a deconstructed pastry. Look, the point is, both Gabon and Nauru present interesting case studies. Gabon, with its constitutional promises and the constant push and pull of political realities. Nauru, with its constitutional promises and the constant push and pull of political realities. Nauru, with its unique challenges of scale and international pressures that sometimes overshadow individual liberties. It's a right to individual libertism isn't down, it's about what actually happens on the ground. Happens a minute, by minute, day minute.
That's a fantastic point, Leo. It's all about that practical application. Oh, ultimately, legal systems and individual rights are living, breathing things, constantly shaped by society and leadership. It's a continuous journey towards a more equitable world. And sometimes that journey involves a few hilarious detours or unexpected potholes, right?
And always be ready with a witty observation or a new punchline. Because what's life without a bit of observational humor about the serious stuff? That's our take on legal systems for now, folks.
Alright, Mira's ready to jump into spa, healthy living, and relaxation opportunities. I'm already imagining myself surrounded by tropical plants, perhaps with a parrot on my shoulder, getting a deep tissue massage. Today we're exploring Gabon and Nauru, and I'm just bursting with curiosity about how these two very different places handle winding down and recharging.
Mira, a parrot on your shoulder and massage. Sounds like a jungle fever dream you're having. You usually need an IV drip of coffee just to start the day, so relaxation might be a strong word for your usual pace. But I'll bite. Gabon, with its vast rainforests, might offer some unique, nature-based tranquility, but Nauru. Whoa! I'm picturing more of a find a quiet rock and meditate kind of vibe there, if you can even find a quiet truck.
Oh, come on, Leo. My energy is part of my charm. And who says a parrot can't be a great conversationalist during a spa treatment? You'd be surprised. Anyway, speaking of Gabon, I'm thinking about those incredible national parks. Lango, for example, with its gorillas and hippos on the beach. Wow, surely, just being immersed in that untouched nature is a form of healthy living and relaxation, wouldn't you say? It's like a natural therapy session, just without the therapist's couch.
Well, if your idea of a spa is getting a vigorous mosquito by exfoliation, then Gabon's rainforest might just be your 5-star experience, Mira. While Gabon certainly has breathtaking natural beauty, don't expect plush robes and cucumber water everywhere. It's more about ecotourism, high-end lodges that might offer a massage, sure, but the true healthy living there probably comes from fresh air and maybe a lot of walking. I'm certain our listeners who've explored Gabon's interior would agree that the real relaxation is
Exactly. That's the beauty of it, Leo. Sometimes the best spa is Mother Nature herself. Ooh, imagine waking up to the sounds of the jungle, taking a guided walk, and letting the lush greenery just wash away all your stress. It's less about the fancy treatments and more about holistic well-being, connecting with the earth. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think. Have any of you tried forest bathing in a place as wild as Gabon? Please, share your experiences in the comments below on YouTube.
Forest bathing, huh? I'm imagining you trying to strike a yoga pose next to a grumpy gorilla. Oops. Sounds like material for your next stand-up, Mira. But seriously, in Gabon, healthy living also ties into the local diet: fresh seafood, root vegetables, fruits like mangoes and plantains. That's a natural, wholesome approach, far from the grocery run. That's a natural, wholesome approach, far from the processed stuff we often see. Now, Nauru, on the other hand, well, Nauru is quite a different story when it comes to healthy living.
Wow, that's a stark contrast. So, for Nauru, maybe the relaxation comes from the sheer simplicity of island life. Just watching the waves, feeling the ocean breeze. Ooh, no bustling city, no traffic. It's almost like a forced digital detox, wouldn't you say? Though I imagine a tiny island means less space for grand wellness retreats.
Forced digital detox? More like hope your satellite internet works, or you're truly off the grid detox. Nauru is one of the smallest countries in the world, Mira. Its landscape has been heavily altered by mining, so picturesque natural spa settings aren't exactly abundant. Relaxation there would likely involve the ocean, maybe a quiet walk along the limited coastline, or simply enjoying the warm weather. It's an interesting thought. Can true relaxation exist when a place has such a challenging past with a challenging past with its in past with its in thought can past with its in past with its in past with its such a challenging paralengin?
That's a deep question, Leo. Perhaps true relaxation isn't about the physical surroundings, but the state of mind you bring to it. For Nauru, it might be about finding peace and simplicity, embracing the quiet. Maybe a dip in the clear ocean is the ultimate hydrotherapy? And for healthy living, it might be about connecting with the tight-knit community, sharing meals, and supporting each other. That's a different kind of wellness, isn't it?
Indeed. While Gabon might offer a more traditional eco-wellness path with its natural resources and potential for adventure-based healthy living, think hiking through national parks or swimming in rivers, Nauru's offering is far more minimalist. You're not going to find a dedicated spa there, unless you consider the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean as one giant, very exclusive bath. And for healthy eating, reliance on imported foods can be a challenge anywhere, especially on a small island.
Well, so for our listeners planning a wellness escape, Gabon offers rugged, while natural immersion, while Nauru offers profound quiet and a chance to truly unplug. If you're looking for a luxurious mud wrap, you're probably heading to the wrong place for either, unless you bring your own mud. Ooh.
Precisely. If you're after a traditional spa experience with scented oils and soft music, you'll need to research high-end lodges in Gabon. But even then, it's not their main draw. Nauru, for all its charm, isn't a wellness destination in the conventional sense. So for ultimate relaxation in Gabon, pack your hiking boots and a good bug spray. For Nauru, pack a really good book and a healthy dose of self-reliance. And a portable coffee maker, if you're me.
Always thinking about the coffee, Leo. I think that beautifully wraps up our look at spa, healthy living, and relaxation in Gabon and Nauru. They're unique, that's for sure. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube if you enjoyed our deep dive into these fascinating countries. So, let's explore where to find your inner zen, or perhaps just a really uplifting service in Gabon and Nauru. I'm imagining two very different paths to spiritual fulfillment. Ooh.
Inner zen. You make it sound like you're looking for a lost sock. I bet in Nauru, inner zen is simply finding a quiet spot on the beach where your phone gets reception.
Oh, Leo, don't be so cynical. Maybe it's about finding a moment of genuine peace, like when you finally finish that second cup of coffee. For some, it truly is a powerful journey.
Second cup? Mira, I'm already on my third. This podcast requires constant fuel, you know. But seriously, let's look at Gabon first. It's largely Christian, right? I'm picturing grand cathedrals, maybe some incredible gospel choirs. Wow.
Gabon has a strong Christian presence, mostly Catholic and Protestant. I imagine their services are so vibrant, you'd almost want to start dancing in the aisles. Ooh, and get this, many Gabonese people also blend those beliefs with traditional animist practices. It's like having spiritual fusion cuisine.
Spiritual fusion cuisine. You always find a way to make it sound edible. So, you're saying it's not just a Sunday service, it's a Sunday service with a side of ancestral spirits saying, "Hey, what's up?" That sounds like potential material for a skit, actually.
Exactly. The way different beliefs can coexist. I'm certain that our listeners living in Gabon would agree with me. It's a true testament to openness. Ah, and then you have smaller Muslim communities too. It's like a spiritual smorgasbord, something for everyone.
Spiritual smorgasbord. Is that before or after the spiritual fusion cuisine? I'm just trying to keep track of the menu. So, Gabon sounds pretty open-minded about faith. Wow, now, let's pivot to Nauru. I bet their churches are smaller, more intimate, maybe even beachfront, considering the size of the island.
Oh, a beachfront church. Can you imagine the hymns blending with the sound of the ocean? Ah? Nauru is also predominantly Christian, mostly Protestant, with the Nauru Congregational Church being a big deal. It's very central to community life, which I just love. It's like everyone knows everyone's auntie from church.
Everyone knows everyone's auntie from church. That sounds either incredibly cozy or like there's no escaping a lecture about your life choices. Oops. I'm picturing a small island, deep faith. Everyone's watching. Is it like a spiritual reality TV show, where the pastor is the host?
Oh, Leo, you and your reality TV shows. It's more about community support and shared values. I think it's wonderful. What about the legal side of things, like religious freedom? Is it widely protected in both places? I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this, especially those who prioritize freedom of belief when traveling.
Good question, Mira. Both Gabon and Nauru generally respect religious freedom, so no one's getting a side eye for their choice of spiritual path, which is a good thing. I once tried to find a specific type of herbal tea that was supposed to clear my third-eye-long story and ended up in a Gabonese market. I just kept getting directed to goat meat. Oops. Clearly. My spiritual quest was misunderstood.
Oh, Leo, your third quest ending in a goat market is classic. You know, speaking of resources, for anyone planning a spiritual journey or just looking for travel details, they should definitely check out Jetolf AI. It's amazing for finding all sorts of travel info. Maybe even spiritual retreat locations, who knows?
That's a good point, Mira. You might even find where to get a decent cup of coffee that doesn't lead to a goat. So, while Gabon offers a blend of Christian and traditional animist practices, Nauru's spiritual landscape seems more consolidated around its Christian churches. It's like Gabon is a buffet and Nauru is a fixed, delicious menu. Both good, just different flavors.
I love that comparison, Leo. A buffet versus the delicious fixed menu. It really highlights the diversity. Whether you're seeking a vibrant spiritual fusion or a close-knit community church, both countries offer something unique. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss our next spiritual smorgasbord of comparisons. Oh!
Absolutely. And if you think Mira's spiritual smorgasbord sounds like a new band name, let us know in the comments. It's important to remember that for both Gabon and Nauru, these opportunities are deeply woven into the local culture. It's not just a Sunday thing, it's a way of life. Which, for a comedian, means endless observational material.
Alright, so our next stop on this global comparison tour is social equality, respect for minorities and diversity. Ooh, first up, Gabon. I always picture it as this lush, green jewel of Central Africa, and it's got a population that's just as colorful, with over 40 different ethnic groups. Wow. It's like a giant potluck dinner where everyone brings their unique flavor. You've got the fang, the mai, the panyu each with their own traditions.
A potluck, Mira? More like a tasting menu where some groups get a much bigger portion than others. Gabon's rich in oil, but that wealth doesn't exactly flow equally to everyone's plate. Aha! It's a classic tale of diversity rubbing shoulders with economic disparities, which, let's be honest, can make social equality feel a bit like a distant mirage. Ouch. If you're living there, I'm certain you'd agree.
Oops. You're right, Leo. Sometimes the ingredients don't mix as harmoniously as they could. But the government has actually been making efforts to stir things up for national unity. They've got these cultural events that try to celebrate everyone's heritage. Oh, it's like, hey, let's all dance together, even if we're tripping over our own feet a bit. And they're trying to give a bigger voice to groups like the indigenous pygmy populations, who've often been overlooked.
Give them a voice or a megaphone that sometimes cuts out, Mira. It's a complicated recipe, integrating marginalized communities while the larger groups are still elbowing for space. Whoa, speaking of small spaces, let's jump to Nauru, the world's smallest republic. Talk about a tight squeeze for diversity. It's like trying to fit my entire stand-up career into a single joke. How do you even do diversity in a place you can practically walk across before your coffee gets cold?
That's the charm, isn't it? Oh, Nauru's indigenous population is, of course, the heart of the island, but it's also seen a fascinating mix of people from other Pacific islands, China, Australia, New Zealand, mostly drawn by the phosphate mining. Well, it's like a microcosm of global migration, all happening on one tiny rock. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Does a smaller space make diversity easier or harder to manage? Leave your thoughts in the comments on YouTube.
Harder, Mira, much harder. Imagine trying to hide from your neighbor when you're on Nauru's one main road. There's no escaping each other, which means social harmony is either really good or everyone's planning a surprise party or a tiny, well-contained riot. It's an interesting case study in how cultural differences play out when everyone's basically sharing the same backyard. It certainly adds a unique flavor, even if it's not always a sweet one.
You're right. It's definitely a close-knit community by necessity. Oh, in a place so small. Traditional Nauru and values often emphasize community and connection, which can be a huge asset when it comes to respecting differences. It's like everyone's part of the same extended family, even if some cousins arrived a bit later. It reminds me of how important it is for all of us to find detailed information on such diverse countries, which you can easily do at Jet Off AI.
Yeah, extended family can also mean you're stuck listening to Uncle Barry's bad jokes at every holiday. Oops. While Nauru generally has a peaceful social fabric, any disagreements can feel amplified when there are only so many places to go. It's not like you can just retreat to your vast, private estate to cool off. You'll likely see the person you're upset with at the island's one supermarket. So, if you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments. But I'd say the smaller the space, the bigger the need for everyone to just get along.
Both Gabon and Nauru present really distinct challenges and opportunities when it comes to social equality and diversity. Wow. Gabon's about managing wealth distribution and ethnic relations in a larger, resource-rich nation, while Nauru's about maintaining harmony under integrating diverse groups in an incredibly small, unique environment. Oh, whether it's a grand orchestra or a ukulele band, the goal is always to hit those right notes of respect.
Right, because nobody wants a cacophony. And no matter where you are, whether it's a bustling city in Gabon or a quiet corner of Nauru, remember to give this podcast a like on YouTube. It's the least you can do for our efforts to dissect global harmony. After all, we're doing the heavy lifting, so you don't have to pack your bags and go sort out global diversity yourselves.
Alright, so our next topic is taxation, retirement, and social rights for long-term immigrants. You know, Leo, when I hear taxation, it sounds like a super serious topic. But I bet even there, we can find something to giggle about. Especially when we're comparing countries like Gabon and Nauru. I mean, Nauru is so small. I sometimes wonder if they just have one tax collector for the whole island. Wow.
Mira, Knowing you, you'd probably try to befriend that one axe collector and convince him to accept funny anecdotes as payment. Oops. But you've hit on something interesting. In Gabon, for long-term immigrants, you're looking at a pretty standard tax system. Income tax, VAT, all the usual suspects wanting a slice of your pie. Ah! If you're working legally, you're contributing to their social security, the CNSS. It's a system that's been around, trying to build up those pension pots.
A future. Oh, that sounds almost like a promise, doesn't it? Like, contribute now, and one day you'll be sipping coconut water on a beach somewhere. Courtesy of your pension. But wait, speaking of small, tropical places in taxation, Nauru has a reputation for being tax-friendly, right? I heard for a long time they practically had no income tax because of their phosphateously disappearing. My wallet will disappear and disappear.
Your wallet would throw a party, and then immediately get lost trying to navigate Nauru's single road. Is that... Historically, Nauru did rely heavily on phosphate, so personal income tax wasn't a big thing. But even tiny islands eventually realize money doesn't just grow on palm trees. Oops. They've introduced some taxes and levies more recently. Still, it's not the labyrinthine system you find in, say, Gabon or any country that actually has more than one supermarket.
Cozy. I love that. Like a tiny, knitted social safety net. I'm picturing a single doctor on Nauru running a general practice like clinic, and maybe also doing light plumbing on the side. Wow. In Gabon, if you're working on paying into the CNSS, you'd likely have access to public health care, and your kids could go to local schools. It sounds like a more traditional setup for an immigrant family looking for stability. Do you think, for someone planning a long-term move, Gabon's more established structure would feel more secure, despite the taxes?
You're right, Mira. It's security versus simplicity, or perhaps predictable bureaucracy versus charming minimalism. In Gabon, the social rights for immigrants are generally tied to those contributions. You pay into the system, you get access to health care immediately if you meet the criteria, eventually. If you meet the criteria, a pension. It's logical, if a bit cumbersome with paperwork. But on Nauru, for long-term immigrants, the idea of a form of a crayon seashells and hoping for Gabon seashells and hoping for good fish shells and hoping for good.
If you're heading to Nauru for retirement, you'd better bring your own hammock and a lifetime supply of SPF. Ooh. And maybe a very large emergency fund. But it highlights a real difference. Gabon offers a more structured, albeit perhaps slower, path to social integration and benefits through its existing systems. For long-term immigrants there, it's about understanding the CNSS, the local tax laws, and how their contributions translate into future security. It's less of a leap of faith and more of a careful step onto a well-worn, albeit sometimes bumpy path.
Absolutely. And the bureaucracy in Gabon, while present, means there's a process, there are rules, and usually there's someone you can eventually talk to about your pension plan. On Nauru, it's less about navigating complex tax codes and more about understanding a unique economic model and managing your expectations regarding Nauru? It's like understanding a unique economic model and managing your expectations regarding state-provided social services. It's a stark contrast that provided social services. It's a stark contrast that boils down to personal preference. Would you rather pay taxes and social services? Benefits and social servicing.
And less worrying about losing your map, because who knows where you'd find another one on Nauru. Wow. So, for our fabulous listeners out there, if you're dreaming of a long-term life in either Gabon or Nauru, it really comes down to whether you prefer a well-oiled machine with a few squeaks, or truly unique, small-scale operation where you are the main engine of your future. Let's dive into our final comparison for today. This time, we're looking at the rate of meeting specific interests, and we're heading to two very different spots, Gabon and Nauru. Oh, it's like comparing a lush rainforest to a single, very enthusiastic coconut tree.
A coconut tree that's probably seen more phosphate than sunshine, if we're being honest. Speaking of enthusiastic coconut trees, I'm certain that our listeners living in Nauru would agree with me if they can actually find a club for coconut tree enthusiasts. Wow, but seriously, this topic really highlights how vast the world is, doesn't it?
Absolutely. In Gabon, for instance, you've got this massive Central African country, largely covered by rainforest. Wow. So, if your specific interest is, say, tracking gorillas or birdwatching rare species, you're pretty much in paradise. Aha! You could probably join a mysterious forest sounds appreciation club and have endless material.
True. I can picture it now, Mira. Enthusiasts in Gabon decked out in their best safari gear, comparing notes on the most elusive bird calls. Ah, and if you're into photography, imagine the raw, untamed beauty. Oh, if your specific interest is competitive ballroom dancing, well, the options might be a tad more. Rainforest chic, shall we say. Perhaps a dance with a tree club?
Or maybe learn to tango with a pangolin. Oops. Just kidding. Don't try that at home, folks. But seriously, beyond nature, Libreville, the capital, has some cultural hubs. You might find groups for local art, traditional music, or even expat clubs for those who miss their home country's trivia nights. Aha! It's a country with space and diverse ecosystems, which naturally allows for a broader spectrum of interests.
You hit on something important there. Space! Now, let's pivot to Nauru. My friends, if you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments, but Nauru is the world's smallest independent republic. Wow. It's basically a single, isolated island. So, if your specific interest is finding other people who are also specifically interested in collecting rare stamps from Nauru, you might be the club's only member.
Oh, you be the president and snack coordinator all rolled into one. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. What would be your specific interest if you lived on an island that's only 21 square kilometers? Aside from, not falling into the ocean. Oops. My guess is marine life is a big one. Fishing clubs, snorkeling groups, maybe even a spot the rare fish before Leo tries to make a joke about it club.
My jokes are perfectly respectable, thank you very much. Oh, but you're right, Mira. Nauru's interests would definitely lean heavily into what's available naturally. Fishing, undoubtedly. Perhaps a very competitive league of Australian rules football, as it's popular there. Wow, but if you're a connoisseur of ancient Roman architecture, you might feel a little underwhelmed. You'd have to start your own imaginary Colosseum reconstruction club.
That club would be very budget-friendly, I imagine. No travel costs, just a vivid imagination. So, comparing the two, Gabon offers grand adventures for nature lovers and a modest selection for cultural pursuits. While Nauru, bless its tiny heart, would require you to be an innovator of your own interests. It's less about finding your niche and more about creating your niche. Or embracing island life wholeheartedly.
Precisely. If you're a fan of, say, underground experimental jazz fusion, Gabon might offer a small, passionate community in Libreville. In Nauru, you'd be the entire fusion band, playing for the resident seabirds. And you'd have to bring your own instruments on the plane.
Sir, is that a tuber or a very large exotic fish? Oh, the beauty of these places, despite their differences in offering specific interests, is how they make you adapt and appreciate what's available. It truly broadens your perspective.
It forces you to be resourceful, doesn't it? Like if you're into competitive basket weaving in Gabon, you might find a village specializing in intricate patterns. In Nauru, you'd probably be using coconut fronds and teaching your neighbor how to make a really sturdy hat. The ultimate DIY hobby is paradise.
Well, speaking of resourceful and making the most of what you've got, that wraps up our look at Gabon and Nauru for the rate of meeting specific interests. Wow, it's been quite a journey comparing these two.
Indeed. We hope our 31 points of comparison have helped clarify your thoughts. Wow, we aim to guide those wondering which suits me better. Both countries offer unique attractions, challenges, customs, and flavors.
If you've listened this far, you've earned a round of applause. We've covered everything from safety, economy, healthcare, and education to nightlife, family-friendly spaces, language barriers, LGBT scenes, and hospitality.
In future episodes, we might dive into gastronomy or compare other fascinating regions. Oh, stay tuned. We'll be back soon.
That's all for now. Whether you're at home or traveling, remember to live life to the fullest. Both Gabon and Nauru, and every place in between, have so much to see, learn, and love. Ooh. Bye for now. A quick note: this podcast was recorded at Jet Off AI Studios, and we'll continue exploring new topics with their support. We invite all our amazing listeners to head over to the Jet Off AI YouTube channel for more episodes like this. Hit that bell icon to catch our videos the moment they drop and be among the first to listen. Wow.
A big thank you to Jet Off AI for making this possible. Wow! We'd love for you to share your thoughts, comments, and critiques below. Reading and responding to them truly brightens our day. I'll see you next time, friends. Take care. And remember, whether you're chasing gorillas or teaching a seagull to play poker, life's an adventure. Good luck choosing.